Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 4th regular meeting of council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. We note that we have Councillor Grenz online. Councillor Grenz, if you could do us a quick sound check, please.
Good afternoon.
That I could hear you. It was a little on the light side, Joel. If you lean into the microphone or just give me one more time.
Let's try this again here. Good afternoon.
Way better. That's awesome. So loud and clear, Councillor Grenz. Thank you for that. Council, up front, we have our consent agenda. The minutes of the council meeting held April 20th, 26, and also the approval of the council meeting agenda. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any notes of omission or changes? None? All those in favor? Thank you. That passes. We have one presentation today from MNP LLP, the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2025. A presentation by C. Vanderhurst of MNP LLP of the city's audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2025. Mr. Vanderhurst, you've been here before. You know how the microphone works. We're good to go, sir. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. And thank you to council and Councillor Grenz online for inviting me here to present the financial statements and a little bit about the audit. As in past years, I'll take you through highlights, summary of the financial statements, and then a little bit about the audit process, and then we'll pause for questions at the end. I'm going to get myself sorted here. I will come back to that slide. I'm going to start with a little bit of a different order than in prior years. It's a little bit different flow to the conversation. So again, before I start talking about numbers, big thank you to the finance department and staff throughout the city for going through the audit process. It goes very smoothly. We really appreciate all of their assistance. I'm going to start here on the statement of operations. This is the income statement for 2025 and the revenues and expenses of the city. You can see there total revenues of just over $43 million for the year, up from the prior year's 38, and also a little bit above budget. So one of the significant increases there is you've got $2.5 million of developer contributions received by the city during the year for work here at Jensen, Lee, and Craig Street. So you bring those in as assets, but you also have some revenue there. So that's why it's a significant increase. Total expenses for the year were $35.2 million, up about 4.4% overall, but under budget. Our budget was $40 million. So you get an accounting surplus of $7.7 million, just almost 7.8. Important to note there, that's an accounting surplus. It does not have adjustments for capital assets and a few other things. Capital spending for the year, actually about around the $7.6 million mark, does wipe out most of that accounting surplus. So because I say accounting surplus, we get a lot of adjustments from you can't really compare budget to those numbers really cleanly. But when you're thinking about budget, the statement of cash flows is a much closer way to think about it. Here you can see regular operations of the city brought in $12.7 million, very consistent year over year from 24 to 25. Capital spending of $7.6 million. The largest portion in there was a $2.2 million for a portion of this building, so that you own the PCTC building, as well as a variety of other capital projects throughout the year. One thing to note, capital spending of $7.6 million, the budgeted capital spend was actually 17.9. So you can see there's still a significant amount of capital plans in the works and things to be done in the future. Net transferred out of the investment accounts is $1.2 million. You're paying down some debt on schedule of $203,000. And at the end of the year, you had a cash inflow of $6.1 million into the main bank accounts. So if I flip back a couple pages to the statement of financial position, there you can see that roughly $6 million increase in cash and investments from 91 to $96 million. All of your financial assets, cash and receivables, things that you can turn into cash, are $105 million at the end of the year. The debt that you're paying down on schedule is $4.4 million. Debt and payables and other liabilities is $37.6. If you subtract those 37.6 of liabilities from the 105 of financial assets, you get the net financial asset position of $67.6 million, and you can see it has improved year over year by about $4 million. The physical assets being managed by the city, roads, water, sewer, buildings, everything you can touch, has increased to $215 million, and the accumulated surplus at the end of the year on an accounting basis of $283 million. So the $283 million is split into a couple different accounts. Starting from the bottom up, you can see there's the total. The largest amount of that accumulated surplus is what we call the equity and the tangible capital assets. So $210 million of physical assets minus the debt. There's an unrestricted surplus of $26.7 million. You can see it's gone down just about $8 million year over year. And then the restricted surplus account, so funds set aside for future capital projects and things like that, has increased from $33 million to $46 million. So about a $12.4 million increase. Shifting gears then out of the numbers, we're happy to be providing what we call an unmodified audit opinion. That is a clean audit opinion. We're satisfied that the financial statements that you have in your packages today are prepared accurately in all material respects in accordance with the appropriate government accounting standards. The last step today is council approval of the financial statements after the presentation. When we go through our audit process, a couple short reminders. We look at controls at the city to make sure you're getting accurate financial reporting. We sample transactions throughout the year. We don't look at everything. And again, a big thank you to staff in finance and throughout the city. We'll confirm our independence. So we didn't do any other projects with the city that would impair my ability to give you an independent audit opinion. And I'll wrap up by going back into the numbers. So we just looked at 2025 to 2024. It's kind of hard in isolation to look at just 2 years and see things. So I like to look a little bit farther back, look at trends, what's going on in the finances, and does that have any indicator on what you might be looking at going forward. So the first trend we look at, we call it sustainability. You're looking at your total financial assets, cash and receivables, comparing it to your liabilities. And really is this, are you above 1 to 1, which means you have some cash resources available for future projects, or are you below that 1 to 1 mark and you're having to raise taxes or debt to pay for the past transactions? So you can see it's remained steady. It was 2.65 over 2 years ago. It's up to about 2.8, and it held flat for the year. So you're keeping that balance of reserves and funds available for future projects. Then the next one we look at is we call it flexibility because we're looking at your infrastructure and how much demand you're going to have on future capital replacement. So we look at a rough aging of the capital assets. We compare the depreciated value to the original cost. Is to see, are you keeping on top of some of those costs? So here you can see it's been declining for the last 5 years. It was 71.4% in 2021, down to about 68.2%, which just is reflecting some of the aging of the assets. And I call this a rough estimate because this doesn't take into account condition assessment or anything that would have in a proper asset management plan, but just an idea of, are the assets aging faster than you replace them? And I will pause there and turn it back to the mayor. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the financial statements or the audit results.
Thank you, Mr. Van Horst. Any comments from council? Go ahead, Council Martin. Yeah, I had your hand up quick. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. It's nice to be first.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there you go.
Very
Yeah,
rare.
I looked at you first this time.
Yeah, thank you
Go ahead.
very much for
Thank
this.
you.
And I want to let you know that, and I repeat it quite often, before I ever became a city councillor, I came for a whole year. The main reason why was the finances. I thought if things weren't stable, I didn't want to have any part of it, really, because I'm fiscally responsible, but not, I don't have that expertise. And so thank you very much. And our staff here are excellent. And that came from being here a year before I ever even ran. So I like to repeat that because it's the confidence in what we have running the city and how things are laid out and all the surpluses and all the things that are there for us. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, thank you, Corey. And again, thanks to our finance staff for preparing this report. We went over this in the audit committee, asked a few questions. If we can go back to the ratio, the assets to liabilities, 2.8. And I think it's quite tied, if I'm not wrong, to the flexibility as well. So Parksville sits at 2.8, meaning our assets are about 3 times that our liabilities are. A municipality of 15,000 people, in your experience, where do we stand in the curve? Are we right in the middle? Are we performing way better than most other municipalities? If you could highlight that, please.
Thank you for the question, Councilor Gore. It's a great question because the answer is every community is so different with respect to its needs, even capital things you've got coming online, aging of assets, something as simple as roads or water and sewer, that type of thing. There's no magic answer for where you sit. I've got some communities I work with that number's over 10, but they've got a massive project coming and they're putting money into the reserves to spread the cost out. This ratio, when you look at it, I would be really concerned if I saw a steadily decline, right? Because that means you're getting behind. I would be concerned if it's below 1, for sure. But it's tough to answer the question compared to your neighbors and up and down the island, the communities that we work with, because there really isn't a magic number. Every community has different needs and different things to deal with in the future.
Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit to what assets are we taking into account when we do this ratio? Is that something that we can borrow against? Are these the assets? You know what I'm getting at? Like, is this the linear assets like the roads and stuff, that part of the equation that do give us a good picture, but is it really something that we can get some equity, some money out of?
Right. So generally for this ratio, we're specifically looking at cash and receivables, things that you would be able to liquidate within the next year or so and use to pay for projects. With respect to that sort of leverageability, financing through the Municipal Finance Authority, you're generally not lending against your asset base. That would be more of a traditional lender, and it's not impossible for communities to use traditional lenders, but they tend to work with the MFA. It's a good rate and it's a good way to get projects done. Yep. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Van Horst. And just to touch further on Councilor Gore's question, so in the case of the city of Parksville, which is where we are here today, is the 2.8 ratio, in your estimation, a respectable ratio considering the assets, our asset infrastructure program that we have?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. And I don't know that I can honestly answer it without getting into your 5-year plan and your long range asset management, because the question there on the 2.8 is you're above 1, so that's healthy. But if that major project is 3 years out, you might want to have more sooner. There's always the question of any of those big projects, taxes, grants, debt, the mix of how it's going to be funded. And so I would just encourage, anybody looking at the financial statements and anybody looking for it is go pull up the 5-year plan and have a look at what's coming in line. That'll tell you if you feel like that's a comfortable number or not.
So then that would be dependent on our financial staff letting us know that coming up, there's a major recreation center or whatever that is we've decided that's on the books that's going to be coming in. Maybe we should be looking at that, increasing that at that time, which I have total confidence that our financial team would be able to do that. And have recommended this level anyways to get us with our current asset management that we have in our control. Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd actually just like to, thank Corey very much for the presentation, but I'd actually more than that also like to thank Councillor Gore and yourself for those questions, because that was exactly what I was writing down here as well, wanting to get a little dig into that a little bit more. So I appreciate that you can't actually give us a solid number, but I think that your answer helps us explain really what that's about. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
And Councillor Grims, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Corey. Great to see you again this year. We get our annual checkup and it's great to see that we've got a clean bill of health. Many thanks to staff for the diligent work on that front. I do have a question around the depreciation of the assets. To what extent are your numbers informed by the work done by our asset manager over the past few years, or is that sort of a separate estimate that you're doing?
Thank you, Councilor Grants. It's a great question. It's entirely separate. The numbers that you see in the financial statements there today are historic cost from when items were purchased. If I was to dig back through your listing of assets, I'd find stuff in there that's 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and still in the books. Whereas that asset management plan is really that look forward. What do we need to spend next year, 5 years out, 20 years out? And in a lot of respects, I mean, I'm sitting here talking about historic cost financial statements and telling you what they are. I would say do not look at the financial statements when you're looking at that asset plan. Your staff's management plan is going to be the sole source of truth there for what planning you need to do going forward.
Great, thank you. And a follow-up.
Go ahead, Councilor Grants, follow up.
Thank you. And speaking to the unrestricted surplus, do you have any thoughts on what a sort of comfortable level of that is, maybe as a ratio of the overall taxation for the year?
Great. Thank you, Councilor Grants. Again, there's no magic answer there. Some communities will set aside larger reserves and have actually drawn down the unrestricted surplus quite a bit, but the reality is it's in a reserve going forward. The really important piece is the 5-year plan and how much should be in there. You never want to get into a scenario where you can't pay staff. You know, if you're getting into there's only 6 months of funds available, you're going to have a problem. But the reality is you're managing cash flows throughout the year. You know, tax revenues don't come in till the middle of the year. You have to manage through the beginning of the year. And the rest of it is with respect to what's going to go into reserves and the budget for next year's capital projects and other things that are, again, in year 2 to 5 as well are important. So it all comes back down to that 5-year plan.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor.
Thanks, Councilor Grants. Any further comments or questions for Mr. Vanderhorst while he's here? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for your excellent work once again. Council, do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation that the City of Parksville's audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2025 be received for information? And part 2, that the 2025 audited financial statements be accepted as presented and approved. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimous. Thank you, Council. We have one delegation today from Common Ground Consulting regarding a development permit application at 1209 Island Highway East. A presentation by A. Scott and K. Manchette of Common Ground Consulting regarding the development permit application at 1209 Island Highway East. I'm assuming you're not a dual personality today. So do you have someone else online that's attending? There we go. Okay. Thank you. If you introduce yourself, please, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Canmar with Common Ground Consulting. Andrea Scott with Lovett Scott Architecture will be doing the presentation today, and I'm just here to answer any questions you may have afterwards.
Thank you. I can't read the fine print. Can you read the fine print? Okay. That's what we look like. So just in case you're wondering.
Can you all see the site plan here?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet, okay.
It came on with a screen share. There's a screen share up on the screen now,
Great,
but
perfect.
it's advising, there you go.
There
Okay,
we go.
there we got some drawings. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief introduction to our project here. So we have an existing commercial building shown in the red dashed here. And what we are proposing is to provide 3 additional retail buildings on this property. Building A at the top here, Building C in the far right corner, and Building D on the bottom left-hand corner. What we are going to propose is 20%, 27% of a site coverage on this entire property. The zoning allows for 50%, so we are well under that capacity. We will be adding approximately 32,000 square feet of retail, office, gym, and daycare into the project. So this building C here is the only 2-story building, and that will have a daycare on the ground floor and hopefully a gym on the second floor. For the zoning requirements of the parking, we have 116 parking stalls required, and we have provided 119 parking stalls on site. This also includes 8 handicap accessible stalls, and they are all located throughout the site to be accessible from the individual buildings. So we have 3 that are over here accessible to Building A. We have one accessible to Building B, a couple on the rear here for Building B, as well as 2 in here for Building C and D. Now, we also have added 2 additional seating areas to this property for people to enjoy their beverages outside. We have one coming out this southeast corner, and then we have one on this northwest corner here. We have complied with all the zoning bylaws required for this site in regards to building setback, building size, height requirements, garbage provisions, parking, bicycle stalls, and building site coverage. Now, I'll just take you through the renderings here. We had some renderings drawn up so you can envision how this building is going to appear. From this top one, you can see that this is going to be the first building, Building A. And this is the storefront here. This is the drive-through around here. And then the existing building is Building B down in the back here. Now, when we go down to the lower rendering, you can see Building B is on the left-hand side here. So it's the existing building. And what we're doing to it is we are containing most of the project to a facelift for this building. So it would be integrated into the architecture of the new buildings. In this lower rendering, you can also see the 2-story building, Building C, in the right-hand corner here, and then Building D on the edge here. I also have 2 additional views just for your interest. This one is coming off of Arbutus Road, and it's looking at the back of the Building A. And then the existing Building B is down this way. And then you can see in the far corner there is the 2-story building. And then the rendering down on the bottom here is showing what Building A looks like from the other perspective, as well as on the right-hand side is the existing Building B. That's everything for my presentation. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much as well. Is there anything further you need to say right at this time, Anmar? Okay. I'm going to let the floor open. I'm going to give it first to Councillor Beale, has been part of the advisory design panel right from the onset, and I attended one of the later meetings. I believe there's 3 on this project. Was there not, Councillor Beale? Yes, Councillor Beale was at all 3 type of things. So Councillor Beale, I'm going to put the microphone to you because you have a lot of experience with this project. If you have none, then I'm perfectly fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I'll start off and perhaps there will be some additional comments to be made. I would like to congratulate the group on the improvements that, in my mind, improvements, and I think with the ADP as well, in terms of the facade of the building and maintaining some of those gable type structures, the peak, which fits in much better with, let's say, the residential area behind in Parkhurst. I appreciate the fact that the rear of the building, again, is more aesthetically pleasing than, for instance, what we have right now with Building B there. And also the positioning of the buildings does lend to a little bit of a kind of a village feel, if you like, or the fact that those end buildings C and D are facing a different direction. So it doesn't look quite as much like a long strip. I think there were some recommendations as well that perhaps there could be some differentiation with the buildings that, maybe whether it be a little bit of color or something so that it has even more of a village feeling, but some of those might be added or dealt with later. I still do have a real worry or concern about the drive-through. And my understanding, and we'll get to that later when the staff report comes up, but I do understand that, and I believe that a drive-through would be permitted in this particular zone. So that may be the case. But the more I think about it, a real concern is that you now have, and maybe that image could come back up again, but you have the drive-through entrance more or less in the middle of the site, which means that people will be driving in for parking or in fact to exit the space, and they will be cutting across to go into the drive-through and then going around. And I don't know why I didn't think of it during the meetings, but if instead the entrance to the drive-through came directly off Arbutus to the back of the building and would be doing that long line there and then coming out in the middle where you now have people entering, there would be less chaos perhaps, or the potential for chaos. Right now, it would be people coming in from different directions, maybe going to different retail units and cutting across people to go into the drive-through, or it just seems worrisome to me. Now, I can appreciate that. I'm guessing here that whoever whatever retail outfit wants to have a drive-through would prefer that end unit. But in fact, if it was shifted to the other end of Building A, a lot of issues with that drive-through would be eliminated. Another concern that I have, and I know that it can be mitigated during the development permit phase, is sound traveling through to neighbors. But another issue is also light. When you've got moving headlights, that can be very, very distracting and disturbing for residents. And yet the way it is right now, those headlights during the darker months would be facing out towards Arbutus and the residents across the street. Well, if that entrance to the drive-through was off Arbutus and going through the back, none of that would be true. You would not have to deal with the same kind of visual mitigation to avoid that light pollution, if you like, and particularly moving. Oh, it looks like Andrea, I believe it is, has a response for that. I would love to hear.
Thank you, Andrea. I see your hand there. Go ahead, Andrea, please.
Thank you, Mayor. To the Mayor and Council, if I may answer the questions that were brought up. With regards to having the access to the drive-through directly off Arbutus, that's a great idea, except that the car is driving on the wrong side. So now you have the passenger side that's attached to the building, right? So you need to drive in the other direction in order to have the drive-through work. But I do want to reassure Mayor and Council that we do design and build all the McDonald's in Western Canada. So we are very familiar with drive-throughs and how they work and how to optimize them for a site like this one. And what we've provided is we've provided a really great area that is enclosed for that stack parking, which means that nobody would cross over that parking in order to park your vehicles for the other buildings. In addition to that comment, council had another comment about the lights and the noise. So I did forget to mention that, and I apologize, but we do have a sound barrier in place. And what it does is it's an acoustic fence, and it's proven to work where it is at the location of the sound box for the restaurant, and thus the neighbors would not hear any noise from the sound box. This also provides shielding from any headlights that come around, as well as the landscaping that's quite abundant at this area. Thank you.
Follow up, go ahead, Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you very much for that answer. I confess I had not thought about that. You can only go to that drive-through then with a passenger or the very long arm. I appreciate that. So I still do have concerns. I can't help but think, you know, if there wasn't a drive-through, I would just love this, but I am concerned about that. I also wonder, are there any seating? And I'll let somebody else speak, but thank you. And I do appreciate the improvements that have been made. I understand they were kind of got off to on a bad start there, but the improvements are appreciated.
I'll return for a follow-up. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Beal. I have to comment further as well, if I can, Andrea as well. I have received a delegation from the neighborhood advising myself that they're not happy with the drive-through proponent of this proposal. And they were very upset. They said they couldn't understand why this didn't go to a public hearing. But the reason was, of course, is that there's no zoning requirement needed because drive-through is permitted as per the existing zoning. So they're saying we weren't aware of this, or else we would have been storming City Hall to say, how can you let this happen? So they're upset with me for not telling them in time, but regardless, they've come through very loud and clear that they are very sad to see a drive-through component to this development for a couple of reasons. You are coming smack in the middle of, I'll tell you, it's Parksville Mobile Home Park, has a very large number of, I must say, senior population that lives there. We also, there's another development adjacent to the backside of the building off of Northwest Bay Road, accessed through Parker's Place, which is a number of homes. And we also have another proposed workforce housing plan that has been stalled, but is now proposed and is looking for federal funding on it, on the far end of the property of which you own, and so forth, which is going to be housing as well. And so that 3 stories of housing at that site. With the advent of the drive-through, it just changes the whole development, changes the whole feel of that area as being a good development, in this case retail, and you're talking about doing daycare, which is amazing, which is great, but it's a drive-through component that just turns it into a 24-hour constant stream of traffic going through there. And so that is the one thing. So they're very upset about that. Further, if you can go back, if you can, Andrea, to your slide showing your red dotted lines, we also had comments. Can you do that? I can describe it. Where the drive-through component driveway is, and it's adjacent to, okay, I'll wait for this. There we are. Okay, so council, what I'm talking about is the first building to the left that we're looking up there is the building that has the drive-through. It has the drive-through at the very end of it, but the drive-through passageway goes in between, I think you call that building A, where the drive-through is, and then building B is where Serious Coffee is. Is that the right, do I have the right letters there? Okay, building B, so the red dotted line there, it was brought up by a member of the advisory design panel from the accessibility individual on this group to say that that drive-through area is just a accident waiting to happen from anybody going from, say, building B, Serious Coffee, to want to avail themselves of the other buildings attached to that drive-through area, and to go across there, because recognizing, of course, that some people that have mobility issues are confined to wheelchair, power chairs, power scooters, and so forth. They're at considerably less height than a pedestrian, and they are actually become invisible many times, so crossing through. So this individual said this is just the worst design she could possibly ever imagine as being non-accessible, and she was very alarmed. And her comments were noted, but obviously ignored. And I think that that's an error and a mistake on the part of the owners here, because it's very real, as well as the owners of the Serious Coffee Area B have egress like leading right into that driveway that's going through. And so people they're not going slow through the drive-through. They want to get their hot meal or whatever they're getting from the drive-through window. I get it. But at the same time, now they have the egress for Serious Coffee. It enters right into that drive-through passageway. So I just don't get it. This is the wrong place for a drive-through. I can't say it any other way. So my neighbors are saying, is it too late to get a petition up? They'll get a petition that they'll send to council. But at the same time, I was just hoping that your presentation today would include just a restaurant, whether it's just similar to what the town of Qualicum Beach has. They have a bylaw that says that they have no drive-throughs in their area, that you have to have indoor seating and so forth. If the proponent would do that and just eliminate the drive-through, there would be no problem at all. But it's all that increased traffic that you're going to have that's creating a real hazard for the people in the area, as far as the interruption to their lives and lifestyle, but as well as to the individuals, and not just those with accessibility issues, it's with everybody that crosses over. So I'm sorry, but I have to say that I think that this is a terrible design, a terrible location for drive-through. So I had to bring that to your attention. I cannot support this in this at this point. If that drive-through continues, but I'm just letting you know what the residents of the area think as well. And so here we are. So Andrea, you have your hand up, I think.
Yeah. I can answer, and Andrea has.
And Mark, or yeah.
Yeah, so we did take into consideration that feedback we received about the accessibility, and we have now included letdowns at that drive-through, and that drive-through will also include signage, street signage, similar to transportation regulations that a municipality would follow for any crosswalk that you're installing in the municipality. So it will be a crosswalk there. It'll be signed, and we can even go as far to add additional lighting there. But we are already planning on having markings on the ground similar to any municipal crosswalk, signage similar to any municipal crosswalk. So it would have the exact same safety as any given municipal crosswalk.
Thank you. And did Andrea have her hand up as well?
Thank you,
Yes.
Mayor and Council.
Go-
Thank you, Mary, for your questions and your concerns, and Canmore for addressing them. I just wanted to add a little more context to this area here. So in one of the ADP meetings, there was concern for this. And so what we've done is we were able to take away the existing parking that was located in front of Serious Coffee. And so this is where the entrance and exit is from Serious Coffee. It is not on this side. So I just want to clarify that. So what we've been able to do is, with the existing entrance at Serious Coffee, we've taken away any parking issues. So now we've widened this sidewalk considerably. So there's quite a lovely sidewalk width around here, so that it joins and flows naturally into Building A. This allows for the pedestrians and for the mobility challenge people to easily cross out of the Serious Coffee and back over to Building A without any issue with cars reversing into here or any issues with the parking drive-through lineup. Now, one other addition we've added to this, just so you're aware of parking drive-through design, is we've located this entrance to the drive-through away from one of the main accesses. And what this does is it prevents anyone from ripping up Island Highway and just screaming into it. So what they need to do is they do need to negotiate around the existing parking lot with the cars and the pedestrians in here to slow them down. This is in addition to all the crosswalk provisions we will be adding to the area there. Thank you so much.
And Andrea, if you could describe as well, you were talking about screening and sound mitigation. I'm suggesting on the backside where the traffic is going to go through in between building A and B, what kind of sound mitigation to prevent it on the Northwest Bay side as well as on the Arbutus Road side that is going to prevent. We've had other drive-throughs in other areas that have changed things afterwards to stop the headlights glaring through and so forth. What kind of mitigation plans do you have to stop that interruption to the two neighborhoods that I was talking about?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Along North Bay Road here, we have quite a plethora of planting with some very tall hedges and trees along here. And then there is quite a distance, which is over 50 feet, 60 feet actually, in order to get back to this drive-through lane. So it's quite a distance, which also tapers off the lights. It tapers off the sound. In addition to that, we have a landscaping strip through here, and then we have that acoustical fence that I was talking about, and that's in front of this reader board where the people would order their meals. Now, I did note that there was also a comment about 24-hour drive-through service, and I believe that is not allowed in the bylaw. Don't quote me on that, but I do not have any 24-hour drive-throughs around the area, so I don't believe that would be the case here, and it would also be discussed when the owner goes in for a tenant improvement permit application. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Andrea, and that is good news, and I'm glad to hear that. Just when you mentioned that you did the McDonald's, I just assumed that you were just at the same standard with the 24-hour drive-through. So that is good news. I'm going to open it to other members of council now. Thank you, Andrea. Joel, Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the proponents, presenters for your work with the ADP. I know you went through a few rounds there, and I've had a chance to also pay attention to that a bit. My question is, a couple of them actually, is one, I guess, related to the childcare space, which is very exciting if that goes in there. Maybe you can speak to what opportunities there are, maybe for like outdoor play area for that childcare space. And maybe I'll just rattle off my other question. So Building B has currently, Serious Coffee has sort of an outdoor seating area next to Building B that's quite popular. I see people congregating there a lot, and we love to see folks congregating and getting together and spending time in community. And so love to see that being facilitated in the site. You mentioned two new areas. Could you maybe give a sense of what the sort of net difference is in square footage for the outdoor kind of seating areas relative to current? And then also in front of Building B, are you still contemplating traffic flow through there, or would that be closed off to vehicle traffic, noting the potential for people to try to get into the drive-through from two different directions there, and maybe actually just allowing for that Serious Coffee to be still allow for them to have that open area there? So that's my questions.
Andrea or Admiral?
Great. Thank you, Councillor, and to the Mayor. To answer the first question, what was the first question?
Outdoor play area. Sorry, yeah.
Oh,
I rattled through a few there, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so we have outdoor play area that is provided all along the edge of Building C. And what we've done is we've made sure to design the building so that the second floor gym, potential gym, doesn't have any overlook onto this daycare area, but that the daycare that's provided for on the ground floor does have direct access and direct overlook onto this play area. Also, Building D does not have any side windows to address this as well. So there is ample space there that we've briefly calculated based on the size of the daycare. But that will come when the tenant applies for their permit to put it in themselves. Now back to the outdoor area. So the outdoor area for the Serious Coffee currently, I'm not aware of how big it is. So I tell you about that at the moment, but what we provided is we provided one outdoor seating area here, a little plaza with a gazebo to cover you from the shade, a couple of benches in here and some shrubbery around it. And then another one up in this corner here, which has a gazebo and coverage and some shrubbery around it as well. The third question about this access. So what we did is we took away all the parking, and it was and we've increased the area of the planting area so that the cars can still traverse through, but they cannot park in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I personally would prefer, I think, to not have that be a throughway and have people go out the backside if they're coming through that way, instead of potentially T-boning each other and trying to go into the drive-through, or people trying to get through there. But I haven't done the measurements, so that's just the concern there.
I can add a
Thank you.
little bit
Go ahead.
more. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Serious Coffee is moving into the drive-through, and we do have an accepted offer in place for them to move into the drive-through space. So that the exit that is on the north side of Building B, where the current seating area is, will be closed for that future tenant, whoever takes the current space Serious Coffee is in. And Serious Coffee will be relocating to the north side of Building A.
So just thank you for that information. That's critical to the traffic flow. So Serious Coffee will operate the drive-through. I see. Oh, okay. So that's a positive. Yeah, I did not know that, because I was expecting a standalone drive-through and the Serious Coffee as well. So they've committed to this drive-through.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good information. Thank you for that. I had not heard that before. Thank you. Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you both for your presentation. I think this will be a terrific way to upgrade the area as the entrance to Parksville, for starters. I really like it. However, just because there's bylaws for drive-through, does that mean we have to have a drive-through? You know, I'm just wondering about this, because if there was a drive-through and Serious Coffee's running it, and there'll be a restaurant there, obviously, with Serious Coffee, then maybe, you know, the hours not to be extended if that's the case. But I don't, you know, because I know people go there and they come out with their coffee, because I'm there a lot. I live in the area. But I don't think the area would want an extended drive-through going through up to 11 o'clock or something. You know, maybe during the day, because it's kind of, we like the rural sort of atmosphere in that area, really. Do we have to do this? So I was sort of suggesting that the development's lovely, it's great, and is a drive-through necessary? So modest, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just looking to see if I can see Andrea's hand. Anybody see a hand up for Andrea? Good to see you. Andrea, did you need to address that at all?
Why do they have to have it?
No, thank you, Mayor. and
Okay,
Council.
thank you. So yeah, as Councillor Martin just mentioned anyway, so that is different. As you're probably aware, the Serious Coffee has become a neighborhood coffee shop that has become a gathering place for many of the neighborhood and so forth. And so to understand that they're going to be operating the drive-through might have some benefit as well, because they know the neighborhood type of thing, and they're certainly not going to trying to lose their customer base that they already have existing. So that makes it slightly more palatable. So the area that Serious Coffee is occupying now, do you have an expected tenant? Like what type of tenant you're looking for that? Are you looking for food or retail or something else at this point?
We don't know who will be occupying the space that Serious Coffee is currently in. But it would need to be something that's obviously compliant with the zoning bylaw there.
Okay, thank you. And if I can just go back a little ways, Councillor Beal mentioned the fact that there's better facades or better roof lines or appearance on the Northwest Bay side of it. Andrea, do you have a rendering on that, that you have a proposal what it looks like for Northwest Bay Road? Could you drop that up on the screen again? Or the backside?
Yes, so to Mayor and Council, that would be this rendering back here.
Yeah, that's much more clear.
Yeah, and then to also address, well, I have the floor, one of the counselors' comments about the changing of material colors. We did update that, so I just, it's just a subtle.
We've lost your your vocal, Andrea.
There.
Okay, try again. Yeah, you're back.
Oh, okay, so in one of the comments, one of the counselors mentioned a change of materials. So what we did take under advisement is we did change the materials of the two buildings at the south here. So you can see that they're different shades compared to the building A and B up in here. So building A and B are a lighter shade combo, and building C and D are a more terracotta warm earth tones of buildings. Just to help there.
Thank you, Andrea. So, Councillor Martin, are you satisfied with that? Yes, okay. Councillor Gore.
Yes,
go ahead.
thank you. I don't want to repeat the drive-through question. I think you heard quite clear and loud from the council. There's a lot of concern. The CS1 zone, that what the properties at Highway Commercial might allow, staff will confirm a drive-through. Personally, I see this also designated as resort lands, so it's proximity to the resorts. I don't see that personally as a compatible use to the resorts, having a drive-through through there. My question is, I have two questions about the stormwater management on site. I do not see, like I was looking at your checklist, it does not say there will be zero runoff of the stormwater. This being on groundwater protection DPAs, I would love to see a lot more rain gardens. And for example, I can point to the Shelley Plaza. It has a lot of rain gardens that capture all the rainwater. So that's critical for me to approve, to have a zero stormwater runoff. That I would personally like to see that. Secondly, I was reading the report, and it talks about some trees being taken down. I'm guessing those are for building C and D. But my recollection, again, looking at the proposal for the lands housing that the mayor alluded to previously, I thought a lot of the trees were part of that site. Is your site taking down? Like, I'm not sure. I thought yours was, there were not many trees that would be affected by this development. And I was surprised to see that some trees will be taken down and others will be protected. So can you clarify, like just the lot lines where those are for your building?
Yeah, Andrea, can you pull up the site plan? Thank you, Councillor and Mayor. So we've tried to keep as many trees as possible behind building C and D. There were a limited number of trees that we had to cut at the location of building C. But the circles you see on the screen there are trees that are existing and that will remain in place around and beside building C there.
Thanks, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So what's your setback from the future development of that 1225 Franklin, like the site that city owns that lot? How far is it, the building C and D? How much is the setback from that?
I don't know what the setback is off the top of my head. Andrea, she'll be able to answer that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Councillor, the setback is a requirement to our property line, and we've met the requirement of 7.5 meters to our property line. So we haven't seen, there was an older rendition of the development here, and so I don't know currently what has been proposed for that lot there. But just to also add to Kanwar's note previously that we are only addressing the trees that are on our site, and that is done through an arborist with an arborist report. Thank you.
And
Go ahead, follow up.
Yeah.
And just to add regarding the stormwater management, so we do have a civil engineer engaged that's doing a full stormwater management plan, and our landscape architect has also designed the northeast triangular landscaping area and the picnic area to the north to be rain gardens as well. So those will be used for stormwater management.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, I was saying like the zero stormwater runoff would be my ideal for this site. But my next question through the mayor is about again, the DPA for the properties that are within the resort lands. As you can see coming into Parksville, you have a nice welcome, lots of green, lots of trees. There's a recommendation of about 20-meter tree buffer on the highway side, 19A. And in the renderings and in the report, I don't really see that tree buffer. I know there's no trees right now, but nothing being proposed to kind of add that tree buffer to the site. Can you speak to that a little bit on the highway side? Thank you.
Through mayor and council, we do provide the required landscape setback and buffer along the highway side as well as around all parts of the property. So I'm not quite sure what clause you're addressing. Perhaps that's for a different area, but the buildings are set back the minimum required, as well as the planting strip is the minimum required, along with the planting requirements from the municipality. Thank you.
Are you okay?
So just to answer that, thank you, Mayor. I would thank you, Andrea. I was mentioning, yes, maybe the landscaping strip is being 20 meters wide, but in the landscaping plan, it would be nice to see some more mature trees being added on that strip. So we keep that buffer along the 19A. I hope this will not conflict with the businesses trying to promote with the signs and everything, but I think there's a possibility for us to kind of beautify that stretch of the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor and Mayor. That was actually a comment we received at ADP as well, and we did add more trees that ADP was satisfied with at the last meeting to the front of the property.
Thank you. Councillor. Oh, Andrea, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and to Councillor. I think I understand what you're saying right now. I believe what you're referring to is 20 meters, not necessarily from our property line, but for the entire landscape buffer along the highway there. So about 3/4 of it is city-owned lands. So I believe we will have to do coordination with the city around this, and I believe that will have additional trees planted on the city lands there to provide that buffer that you are mentioning previously. Thank you.
I'll get back. Mary, if I can just follow through on Councillor Gore's line of questioning here. Andrea, is there a plan for a continuous sidewalk along 19A highway all along the front of that building? As you may or may not know, 1140 or 1180 Resort Drive, which has the rather large complexes that they're going in now, the 3 apartments and as well as the grocery store will be going in there, are providing a sidewalk all the way from Tuan Road right through to Arbutus. Is there plans for a sidewalk on the face of your property, on the front of your property on 19A, which would connect to that sidewalk provided by the other development and which would lead you almost right to our Parksville Museum and Visitor Information Center?
I can answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We did receive an engineering memo, I believe in November, addressing all the offsite engineering infrastructure that we would need to provide. And I believe that was part of the requirements. Staff may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is a requirement that is being designed by our civil engineer.
Thank you, and I'll address staff on exactly that. Thank you. Mr. Russell, if you can comment on that, is there a prescribed sidewalk on 19A? Thank you, sir.
If I may, Mayor, through yourself and the rest of council, it would be specifically specified in the city's works and services bylaw, the standard that the road has to be built to in that area. I believe that sidewalk is part of those requirements, but I'm not in the engineering department, so I don't memorize their standard entirely.
Yeah, and that would be a real plus, you know, like, and if we could have that confirmed anyways, please, from our staff. Anyways, I would like that, for further information, because, making safe accessibility and active transportation all along that strip, as well as providing a treed entrance to our city, as Councillor Gore has mentioned, is very important to us, especially with, we're kind of proud of our Parksville Museum. And we feel that they've done an awful lot to increase the enhancements around their buildings and so forth that they have there. And adjacent now to your development would be very handy. It would be just one more addition. And I have to say, before I pass it on, I did notice the changes in your development, your facades as well, from the backside as well, and I'm appreciative for that. It is way you've gone back, you've listened, and you've done a great job. So let me give you that as well. That I did see the difference in the first one. So thank you for that. Councillor Wood for the first time, and then Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks very much for the presentation. Just for those watching, you know, this is the first time that the council has seen this, besides the advisory design panel. The drive-through issues, it sounds like you guys have done these before. It does look a little tight to me with traffic and pedestrians at the front of the building. You've probably already thought of it. But, you know, I was kind of thinking of having traffic come in off of Arbutus Road and somehow do a little U-ey in that back area to get into line, and then they can kick back out to Arbutus Road, and that takes all of your drive-through traffic using Arbutus Road instead of having it come in off of Island Highway where the pedestrians are and people are parking and all that stuff. You probably already thought of it, so I'm just throwing it out there. The other thing I wanted to mention, you're hearing about trees on Island Highway, you're hearing about sidewalks. We don't often get to speak to kind of a long property like this on your way into Parksville. And so we get very excited at the opportunity to talk about trees and active transportation, because we have to seize that opportunity when we get it. And so that's why you're hearing about, you know, tree canopy as much as possible and active transportation to kind of connect that end of town as you come into the resorts. So, you know, I'm sure you're making some notes, but I just wanted to emphasize why you're hearing a little bit about the trees and the sidewalks. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have two questions, at least a couple of questions. Thank you. One is a topic that came up more than once with the advisory design panel was providing, you know, opportunities for people to gather outside. And I realize that you've set up 2 spots where people could meet and gather. But there was also considerable talk about doing something in front of Building B, in front of what is presently Serious Coffee. And it's true, we don't know what it's going to be in the, you know, eventually, but that space across from there or beside it would hopefully allow for some meeting place, and perhaps some color, you know, some parasols, some umbrellas over tables or something. I'm just concerned, what does concern me in terms of an entrance again to the city is that coming into this, it's kind of devoid of life, or it could be. We've got parked cars and we've got building. There's a spot for people to gather and sit around the back corner. I don't know how many will go there, but there is Building C and the like, and the far end by Arbutus, but nothing in between. It kind of looks like a, you know, your strip mall parking. It would be lovely to see some outdoor gathering spots. Another part of the topics that came up was also around bicycle racks, that maybe something could be up at the front somewhere where a number of bicycles could be parked. And I wonder if could you please speak to both of those?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We, during the previous meeting, we had parking in front of Building B still. So after that meeting, we decided to remove that parking because one of the concerns was traffic flow in front of Building B. And additionally, after we removed the parking, we've added a strip of landscaping there, in which the landscape architect did listen to the comments of ADP and added colorful landscaping that'll be a part of that strip in front of Building B. We did heavily discuss adding a picnic area or something like that there. However, again, going back to ownership's concerns about having a seating area close to the road, they felt like they weren't comfortable doing that. That's the reason they decided not to proceed with a picnic area at the front there. And for the bike racks, we did add at least 2 bike racks, I believe, one of which is going to be a covered bike rack as well, as per the comment received at ADP.
Go ahead.
I hope 2 bike racks doesn't mean spots just for 2 bikes. No, good. Many people at present, certainly whole cycle groups gather there. But that aside, the other question I have is, has there been any consideration to reducing the overall size of Building A and perhaps removing that final commercial unit that's directly opposite Building B? And the reason I bring that up is, yes, there would be 2 parking spots lost, but it sounds like you have enough parking spots. It would increase the visibility and the space between the 2 buildings, which I think automatically makes it a bit safer to traverse. And it also could open up the possibility of a wider sidewalk area beside Building B in the event that it does continue to be some kind of a food establishment, and then whereby people could have, tables along there and so on. I realize that it would reduce the overall number of retail units and potentially reduce the amount of income or revenue that's coming to the owners. On the flip side, I wonder if it would, in fact, increase the appeal value for someone wanting to lease space and take over, for instance, what is now Serious Coffee. So it just seems like it could be, and I'm wondering if that is something that could be considered, or if you have considered that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Were you referring to the parking stalls or the unit itself?
The unit itself, but if the unit itself was removed, then I realized that those parking spots would also go. It would allow for a little bit more separation from the drive-through entrance and Building B. And again, I can't help but think that that would in fact increase the rentability of if that's a real word, of that first unit in Building B.
That's not something we have considered, because what we've proposed is compliant, and based on our conversations with the team, we feel this is a design that ownership and we're confident in.
I was just going to pick up on the line, and then let's go back. If I could, like on that comment, I was Building A, where the Serious Coffee is proposed to be moving into what's going to be a drive-through, which was surprising to me because I didn't know that any Serious Coffee is an island company. So I didn't know they had any drive-throughs, that they had experience actually running a drive-through. But so be it, if that's the case. But I was wondering, is it a game changer for Serious Coffee not to take that over if it didn't have drive-through? Like, did they say that we're only going to build into area A, or move into area Building A if there's a drive-through? Or would they be still interested in taking up the new space in Building A without a drive-through, which would certainly lend itself to what Councillor Bill was suggesting, is that drive-through, the driveway going in between Building A and B could make a really nice courtyard. Anyways, that could service perhaps the tenants of Building A in a regular Serious Coffee restaurant could use it. And then if the new tenants in Building B was also food oriented type of thing, it could actually have shared courtyard space in that area, which is naturally shielded against the sun and so forth. It could be a really nice courtyard area, is what I'm suggesting. Is that, and I would think for the amount of extra business that the drive-through Serious coffee would be getting from the drive-through component, if they increase their seating capacity, like in a courtyard as well, that extra revenue that they would have got from drive-through would now be able to be attained by having a great courtyard that people can actually sit outside, and even take it a step further and make it weather tolerant as well. And then they can get some of that winter stuff as well when the coffee shop literally overflows with people. So I'm just wondering if it's a game changer with them as well. It's just a comment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. They are only interested in that space because of the drive-through.
Are they? Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Beal, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My next, just a question. I don't know if anyone has spoken to you about the possibility of improving what is presently a bus stop that just has a sign that says bus stop there. So if that's something that that you'd be prepared to put a little bit, they're not very expensive, but to put some money into improving that bus stop. That bus stop is actually used quite a bit. I often see people waiting there, occasionally sitting on the ground. And it would be very nice to have, again, encouraging active transit and active transportation to have a look at that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bus stops that are on the frontage of a project are often included in the engineering memo. I can't recall if it was, but it's something that we can work with staff on.
Councillor Wood, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Question about the drive-through again. I'm just trying to imagine a busy morning of people picking up coffee, also busy morning of people dropping kids off to the daycare, which it looks like the traffic would be relatively separate. Obviously, I don't know anything about building drive-throughs. I have used them and I have worked in one at Arby's. I'm trying to, I guess my question is, have we thought about people who kind of change their mind in the drive-through? Are they stuck in that slot behind how many cars, I guess, is the drive-through built for, and they can't change their mind once they're in there? I'm sure you put that into your math. I just thought I'd ask about some of the drive-through thinking, and you have your hand up, so I'll let the chair recognize you.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. Just in regards to that, we have a 14-car stacking line in this drive-through, so that is very large, and that's usually a standard that you'd want for a Tim Hortons, you know, when you see those lineups. So that is really good to note that we have such a plethora of that, so that we can contain all those cars. Now, in addition to that, we have contained the cars, because what we want to do is we want to prevent some person who decides they don't want their coffee and to just jog out and, you know, not even look and then crash into this drive aisle. So what we've done is we've put some preventative measures in there so that these cars are contained in, and you are committed. If you want to go get your coffee, you're going to get your coffee. Now, in addition to the daycare drop off, just one thing to explain is that there's two accesses currently existing on Island Highway. So where we designed the daycare was really important to us because we allowed for this access of the south of the Island Highway to come directly into the site where the daycare is, so that it is completely separated from this drive-through area. You would not cross paths at all, and thus mitigating any unwarranted issues that could arise. Thank you.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Wood? Yeah, I was just thinking that the drive-through or the daycare participants would likely be coming from the west side, the other side down at Arbutus, not coming from Nanaimo side. I'm just suggesting that they would be more apt at using the Arbutus Road or the second access, which coming from the south, I'm not sure how that plays. But that's where the population is, west of this whole development. So anyhow, it's a good question. Councillor Beal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I as well thought, well, since very few of our residents actually live farther east of that area, they're not likely to be coming from that end to enter that spot. Although there are other options. You could drive around Northwest Bay Road and get over to you know, the other road and then turn to the light and then come around. But that
Then-
aside, yes. So that, yeah, that doesn't really work that well. I think it's a great question, but I want to go back to the point that there would in fact be some kind of barrier with the stacked of cars at the drive-through so they can't just exit. So now my question is, how is that anticipated to work for the number of retail units in building A, who I presume, maybe I'm wrong, might be receiving deliveries at the rear of their retail unit? And thinking about, I know how with some places, you know, there would be, you know, a truck would stop there and unload, put things onto a cart and wheel it into the back of the retail unit. But now I'm learning that there's actually going to be some kind of a physical barrier there. So how is that anticipated for deliveries for anyone in building 8? And I will just interrupt though ahead of time. I did hear during the ADP that someone seemed to think that deliveries would happen at night. And I certainly hope that that is not the case, because that is very, very disruptive to neighbors. And furthermore, since we're accessed by ferries, they don't tend to be delivered at night. They do, a lot of times you get deliveries very early in the morning. But again, how are they going to collect those things from the rear of the building A?
Andrea got it.
And Andrea, if you can just zoom into the loading bay and the pathway that we have at the back there, that'd be great.
Are you going to address it, Canmore, or do you want me to?
You can do it.
Okay, so I just wanted to address both your questions through the mayor to council. So the first one about the daycare. So the comment that most of the residents would be coming from the east and use the Arbutus access is actually even better, because we do have two separate entrances off of Arbutus Street, or Arbutus Road, sorry, which would allow for us, the daycare people, to come straight down the back. There's no conflict with the drive-through or with the coffee shop, come all the way down the back to drop off their kids, and then have a separate exit directly out onto Island Highway, or they could wrap around the building to Arbutus Street. So that's a even better answer and explanation. So I might just take that one for myself. And then back to the further comment about the loading for the retail units. So what we've done in the past is, as we have the garbage and loading at the rear, we provide a bollard and chain for this crossing here that you can see. And what this does is that allows for those loading areas and people to use that to cross over the lane that is not accessible by the car to exit, and provide access to all the retail units with exterior service doors down here. Now, this is a common practice in most drive-through lanes. You'll probably notice it now that I've pointed it out, and it is a workable solution. Thank you very much.
Good for that. Follow up, go ahead. Sure.
I'd just like to make a final comment at this point in time, that my understanding from a conversation that I have within the planning department is that certain aspects that we might feel would be needed to mitigate problems for neighbors can in fact be addressed and insisted upon at the development permit stage. So I just thought I'd mentioned that. So, but will be, but that can be with staff, correct?
That's coming
So
up.
yes, exactly. Yes.
Good point.
Because I do still have some concerns about light shining across to particularly Arbutus, and also as well, not as much to Parkhurst, just because of the way the street is set up and the way the fence is there and the screening. But I do have some concerns about the light. As far as the noise goes, the speakers, I have seen that many of those order boards, are now lower so that people speak down into them, and they can be set up so it's on the other side, so that again, you're not hearing them. And the comment that the distance is such, well, before people used to have, I used to hear the car lot, which was across the highway and across another place. So sound can really travel a long way.
Go ahead, Anwar.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We will be preparing a site lighting plan as part of this project. So that site lighting plan will show exact calculations on how much light pollution is getting to any neighboring developments. And our target would be to make sure that's zero or as close to zero as possible. And same with the acoustic barrier. We will work with an acoustic professional, acoustic engineer to make sure that no sound is getting to any of the neighbors as well.
Thank you. Councilor Wood, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you for the presentation. I don't know how much of it is our business to ask which business is going into a certain unit. But at the same time, I think everyone at this table wants to support a local business that is relatively popular, that is quite busy, especially on Sunday mornings. There's a lot of people who drive from all over to enjoy the coffee at Serious Coffee. And so in my mind, it helps us know that we're supporting an already popular local business. And so I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to reiterate, I'm thanking you for this start for this development. And will there be a public meeting for this at all, even though it's not required? We cannot have a public meeting. Okay. Well, you listen to us, then we'll let you know if anything comes up. If we've not had, any reason to, we'd let you know of the concerns of neighbors, because I live in the neighborhood too. So, okay. Yeah, but thanks again. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
thank
ahead,
you, Mayor
Aaron.
and Council. Yeah, we're absolutely all ears and we want the community to like this project.
I'm going to wrap up for final comments and then I'm going to call a 10-minute break anyways. If I could ask for council's final comments to the delegation, and then we'll move to the next item on our report, which is the planning and building development permit application for this exact project. So I want to take 5 minutes in between anyway, so we can gather our thoughts. So anything further to the delegation at this time, council? This is where we all get to put on our wannabe planner and architect hats, and that's what we're doing here. So really, we've grown accustomed to getting really good projects in Parksville, and it's by asking for way more than what would be anticipated. And we've been quite successful and we're very pleased with a lot of it. In fact, when we asked for a few trees, we end up getting a lot more trees than what we ever did. And it's evident in some of the developments that we're extremely proud of. And so I thank you for being, as you say, all ears here, because I think you want to be part of a very successful project in our community. And thank you for having the confidence of locating in our community. I'll say that right up front. So I appreciate your involvement here and your patience in listening to us to trying to get the best product we can for the citizens of Parksville. So anything further, council? Okay, thank you so much. Council, I'm going to ask for a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 2:35, please. Thank you. Brief intermission. That goes for you too, Councilor Grens.
Thank you.
Council, I'd like to reconvene our meeting and we have everybody present. Councillor Grenz, are you back online, please? You could turn on your video if you could, please. Still online, Amanda?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. So I just couldn't find my window. I've been here
Okay,
the
there you
whole
go.
time.
I hear you. We just don't see you. Is that good?
Yeah.
There you are. Now we see you. Well, the flashing invisible man. That's good. Yes. Okay, Councillor Grants, yes, looking good. We're going to reconvene right now if we could. So we've had our delegation, folks, a very great exercise in architecture and planning. The first report on the agenda coming up now is from the Director of Community Planning and Building regarding the development permit application at 1209 Island Highway East to consider issuance of a development permit. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the recommendations as noted? Moved by Councillor Gold.
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor. I think I would like them considered individually, these recommendations.
I certainly can.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Okay, so to make the recommendation for number one, do I have a mover or a seconder for number one? Councillor Martin has moved it and Councillor Beal has seconded. And discussion, please, on number one. Councillor Martin, you've moved it. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Okay, thank you. And any other discussion on receiving it? Go ahead, Councillor Beal. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wasn't sure if at point one or if at point two is the best time to address any questions through to our Director of Planning.
I'm considering that point two would be best because we're
Perfect.
just voting to receive at this time.
Yes.
So yes,
Thank
yeah,
you.
definitely. Yes. Thank you. Any comments on the motion on the floor for one to receive the report? Councillor Gore, go ahead. Sir.
Yes, thank you. And through you, I would like to ask staff, like perhaps rather than moving to recommendation 2, if I could propose refer back to staff after receiving it, would that be in order? With the recommendations from council?
You could do that in number 2. Yeah, once it's on the floor, you could move to defer number 2. We're talking about just receiving it at this point.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, referral is no debate, just for, as an FYI. So if there's a motion to refer or defer, it's vote on and no debate.
Yeah, refer.
So sorry to clarify, Ms. Kaler, then if we were to move and second and debate number 2 recommendation, we could defer it and refer it back to staff then? Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, a referral is always in order. It's just once that motion has been voted on, you can't talk anymore.
So on the motion on the floor to receive the report. Question or all in favor? Yeah, no, that's good. You're anxious. I always like that. It's better early than late. All those in favor? Thank you. That is received. Now, do I have a mover or seconder for the second? That development permit number 25 PDP 169 be issued to the owners of 1209 Island Highway East to facilitate the construction of 3 new commercial buildings, improvements to 1 existing building, parking and landscaping. Do I move or seconder to move this forward? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. Discussion is now when we would entertain discussions on what you were suggesting, Councillor Beal. Or Councillor Wood is the one that moved it. Go ahead, sir.
Sure, Mayor. Is this the right time to ask a little bit more about the engineering report and what's required for sidewalks and trees? Is this a good time to ask staff?
I think this would be the appropriate time. Yes.
So if I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Wood. So the engineering service memo does require pedestrian improvements along the highway as well as along Northwest Bay Road in Arbutus. So it's not just a paved shoulder, but an actual either sidewalk or trail. I know for sure it's a sidewalk on Arbutus and Northwest Bay Road, and I believe it's the same standard that the other developments are along the highway. So I believe that's more of a separated trail rather than a curb sidewalk right at the edge of the road. And then as far as street
What-
trees, the street trees in the engineering standard, I believe it's one street tree every. It's either, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number, but there's a specific specification that they're apart on the, anyway, sorry.
And if I can just question that further, I heard something about suggesting that the sidewalk could look like a resort trail.
That's my understanding. Let me try to read the memo off my phone that I just got sent to me. One moment, please.
Yes, thank you. And my only comment on that is I recognize that, and that was the standard that was applied to Parker's Place. They went to the resort trail, and the residents absolutely despise that trail. They all walk on the road still because it's horrible. It's a tripping hazard. It's just mobility is awful. But anyways, I would suggest if we can at this time, as for Councillor Wood's suggestion as to clarification on the sidewalk and so forth, if we can specify it to be at a standard,
So
matching that of 1180 Resort Drive.
So
Yeah.
It's based, so I'm just gonna read what the engineering memo says on
Okay.
this topic, and so I can't get into the discussion on the standard or the authority to have that standard. I can only try my best at reading what their memo says. So it says, with respect to roads, curbs, walkways, and sidewalks are required along the property frontages on Arbutus Road and Northwest Bay Road. Per section 7 of the pedestrian priority network map. RC1 requires sidewalk on one side of Arbutus Road. RC3 requires pathway on both sides of Northwest Bay Road. And then it says pedestrian facilities required along Island Highway East per the pedestrian priority network map. So whatever standard council adopted in the pedestrian priority network map, which I think was recently before council, that would be the standard that would be along that section of highway. And I believe that would match the other developments that were recently approved along the highway.
I'm unclear. Yeah. Regarding what was already put in place from Tuan Road down, is that the same standard?
I'm not in engineering, so I believe it's the same standard. I believe it's like the normal curb, like it's not going to be a sidewalk right against the paved surface like you'd find in the downtown. It's a separated path. That's my understanding, but I'm not in engineering.
And thank you. And for council's benefit, I can tell you that is an asphalt. It's an asphalt. So that would be the same Resort Drive. No, it's asphalt there now because I watched as they excavated, and it's asphalt all the way down, and they actually wrapped it all the way around the corner. So it's not gravel. Councillor Kiva. No, let's go
no
for
way.
CAO Taylor.
No, thank you. I'm just seeing if Ayla can join the call. So I've just sent her an email to see if she can join. So maybe we can park the answer to that for a sec and see
Thank you.
if,
Yeah,
she
because
can-
it's a good question that Councillor Wood has brought up, and and perhaps Councillor Beal was going to bring it up, which would also include the provision of a bus shelter of that location. You were going to say that probably anyways, weren't you? Sorry, but you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have actually, it was three things that I had noted down.
okay.
And first of all was a question about sidewalk, and particularly due to the fact that when I look at the images that were presented in the slides, there was no indication of any sidewalk up along Highway 19A. And I think that for me, that would be a deal breaker to approve this. I would need to be assured that there is in fact some safe, comfortable pedestrian access along the highway and wrapping around Arbutus, that's fine. I'm not as fussy about Northwest Bay Road, I'll be honest, because there's one on the other side. The other one that I was wanting to absolutely be assured of is that there would be an improvement to the transit stop there. a number of people. And although I do understand that we are expecting some improvement to a transit stop further along with 1180, but nonetheless, many people do use that area, and over time, even more people will. And there will be the workforce housing. So, you know, although the bus stops might not be that far apart, that doesn't mean that people getting to that first bus stop are not walking quite a ways. I've seen students coming up from Arbutus. I've seen people going from other places. So the improvement at the bus stop is something that I would like to see in this. And it's quite frankly, it's a fairly low cost request. Also, regarding mitigation of noise and light. It's wonderful to hear that there will be mitigation of noise, and I do appreciate that I have seen it drive through. Some are not particularly good, but others are quite good. So I would absolutely need to see that or not hear that, as it were. But the thing regarding lights, I worry that sometimes it might just be looking at the building at static light. And absolutely, again, I'm very pleased to see that there's not lighting along the back of the building. That's great. And I gather that it's a fairly low light channel. I still don't know exactly what that looks like. But again, I am concerned about the effect on residents to have a stream of headlights that are moving along, and that would be no doubt going across to the folks who live on the other side of Arbutus. So I'm just, again, I would want to see that there's ironclad assurance that whether it be a fence along the property, I know that there will be landscaping, but can there also be some kind of a solid fence or something along Arbutus, you know, just a section to again stop that effect of moving headlights going along. I appreciate that. You know, it's not easy to run a business. And I also do appreciate that people who are developing something like this, it's a big investment of time, of money, of working with banks, of getting the financing. But ultimately, I also really need to think about what is a long-term impact on neighboring residents. And I always look for a win-win. So I don't want to block something like this, but without those assurances that the neighbors are not going to feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm going to have to move, or I'm going to have to buy blackout curtains or whatever it is. I think it's unnecessary. I think that there are solutions that can be put in place in the built environment, and having some kind of fencing along Arbutus that would ensure that lights are not constantly going there. Again, it's a relatively inexpensive solution, but it's a huge, it has a huge impact on neighbors. So those are three things. I am disappointed that there aren't additional public realm considerations, but I'm prepared to let that go.
So I would, CAO Kaler, so staff making note of what the suggestions are, or go ahead, Mr. Russell,
So-
yes.
I do want to point out a couple of things before we go too long down this path or lane. So this is strictly related to the form and character, the style and architectural features of the development on the piece of private property. Some aspects of this are determined by engineering standards, and council's already adopted transportation network. That determines what the sidewalk is. Things like bus stops are not part of a development permit proposal dealing with items on private property. This isn't a rezoning application. It's strictly approving how pretty the development is, essentially. That's the main focus of this. It doesn't mean the developer can't, as a goodwill gesture, look at some aspects that council's comment on, but again, it's outside of the scope of what the development permit is primarily focused on, the attractiveness of the development.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Beal? And I have to say the developer is still here too, and so they're listening too, and so I can confirm that. CAO Kaler, go ahead. You had your hand up, please.
Thank you. I was just gonna maybe add to what the Director of Planning was saying, that if you look in all of the development permit reports that come to council, essentially it's a must issue at some point. And so the development permit, if you're not as a council satisfied that the applicant has met all of the provisions outlined in the development permit guidelines, which are attached to the report, you as a council must specify exactly what the developer can do to meet those objectives in your opinion. So if you're formulating a motion, just keep that in mind. You probably have to actually specify the guideline that you think has not been met. And then you have to give direction to the proponent as how they could meet it to your satisfaction. So a good example actually is one that Councillor Beale has already some familiarity with for Wembley Mall. There was a specific section in the objective relating to that property that she was able to speak to and point to and require like an additional pedestrian connection in that case. So just you can refer to the development permit guidelines in the attachment if needed, but it does have to be that specific if you're not accepting at this point. So just a bit of guidance there.
So then CAO Kaler, to that line of questioning, at what point then do we allow the amenities? Like, do we discuss amenities or?
So I think what you're asking about is amenities.
Yes.
So this particular type of application is not subject to providing amenities. So amenities are only required under certain legislative circumstances.
Right.
And that's usually where a bylaw amendment is being proposed. So an OCP amendment or a rezoning, or even a change in a significant bylaw, like a procedure bylaw or something like that. So this is kind of the next phase. So the zoning has already been approved. But I think, I can't remember who just made the point, but the developer can voluntarily follow suggestions.
Right.
The only caveat I'd mention there is that then the city has to accept and maintain those improved higher service levels over time in perpetuity. So if, for example, somebody offered to give us park or a new bus shelter or extra lanes or something, then the city would have to take those over ultimately and take responsibility for them. So there are some implications there. But there's no obligation at a development permit stage for anything over and above what the offsites require. And so as the director is mentioning, the offsites are legislated in a bylaw, adopted and approved by council, that provides like very specific in terms of spacing for hydrants, width of the road, the treatment on the paving, all of those things. So it's very cut and dried on what the minimum requirements are per the bylaw. So just, I know it's super confusing because a lot of these things come to you multiple times throughout their phases. So it's always hard to remember what you can ask for when. So that's just clarification on the development permit process stage.
Right. So what we're asking for, it comes under the suggestion column. Right. Okay, thank you. But while I know we've discussed the road, I noticed that Ayla has joined us now to give us the engineering aspect of what, under the current standards, would the sidewalk look like for this development, if you would please, Ayla. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, and that's correct. I wrote the memo kind of with development permits, engineering, we don't have a lot really to say about them because it is so focused on private property. But what we'll typically do is say, heads up, at building permit, here's what we're going to be looking for and talking about. So when they get to building permit stage, we're going to work with them to do a servicing agreement and all of those things, all of the offsite works. But the specifications do, they go off of our cross sections that are defined in bylaw 1540, and we've got 3 different cross sections to work with on this particular property. We've got the resort cross section on Northwest Bay Road, and that cross section has a gravel path on one side and an asphalt path on the other side. And the gravel path has already been built on the north side. So this development would be required to build an asphalt path on the south side of Northwest Bay Road. Then on Arbutus Road, that is a local road, which is calls for a concrete sidewalk on one side of the road. And since there's already pathway further down on the east side or southeast side, depending on what your orientation is, we proposed that this development would be required to build that concrete sidewalk as per our specifications. And then the piece along the highway, that's spoken to in the pedestrian priority network map that defines where pathways are missing, or sidewalks, it says. It doesn't define what a sidewalk is exactly. And for consistency, we specified the asphalt pathway to align with 1180 Resort Drive and 1170 Resort Drive that were required to do those asphalt pathways.
And I think by the looks of the table here, that is exactly what we wanted to hear.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
and it's just good to have that, because as you say, all these different levels of complying with other areas and so forth.
Yeah.
It's rather complex.
Yeah.
But we know now that we are getting pretty well exactly what we had hoped for our community to make a better project. So thank you for that clarification and
My
for
pleasure.
taking time out from what you're doing. Any other questions for Ayla while she's here, council?
No.
For Ayla? Okay. Are we good? Yeah. Thanks for that question, Councillor Wood. That was necessary that we did have clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ella. Okay, then we have next question from Councillor Gore. Go ahead. To the motion on the floor, sir.
To the motion on the floor, thank you. I'll be very specific. I think staff wants some direction on what we'd like to see. And as per the DPA guidelines, and I'm talking about DPA 7 for the Craig Bay Resort area, the two things for me that are missing in this proposal are specifically about the tree buffer that I mentioned. So I would like to see a plan where it's, I think, 0.3 section B, Bravo, that talks about the minimum 20-meter wide strip of trees on the Island Highway 19A frontage. So I would like to see in the plan that being addressed. And I understand, I think it was mentioned that a lot of that is, I think, city-owned boulevard, but I would like to see a proposal where we can work together on this. And second is about point number 9 in the same DPA, water and energy conservation and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So specifically, I would like to see 0 stormwater runoff on the site. And I point to, again, the Shelley Square, where we see a lot of rain gardens on site. I know you mentioned a couple of things that are in place, but in the checklist, it does not mention that it will be 0 stormwater runoff. And it's critical because it also falls under the DPA for the groundwater protection. So those two specific things I would like to see before I approve this development permit. I don't know if staff needs a motion for that. So yes, I move that these two recommendations be included. Sorry.
Sorry to cut you off there. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I think we have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
So what we can recommend is there might be more specifics that come out of this discussion, and then we can do a separate motion giving direction to the applicant on how they could meet. I'm assuming if you're looking for that, you're not going to maybe support the motion that's on the floor, but we do currently have one on the floor that is to accept it. So that
Right.
might be the easiest way to give clear direction on what the next steps are.
Okay. Ms. Russell has his hand up as well. Go ahead, Ms.
Yeah,
Russell.
if I may, typically the engineering standard requires no net increase in stormwater runoff from a property as part of their standard. To have 0 runoff, though, I think you'd end up with a lake at some point because there has to be some runoff. So I think the wording, as I said, I believe the engineering standard requires no net increase in offsite flow, and then it's up to the proponent how they address that as part of their civil drawings. So that could form a term of permit, and it would and that would be could simply be just amending the permit as it stands and adding a term of permit that says no. What I'm trying to suggest is depending on what council ultimately comes up with, there may be an opportunity to amend the permit that's attached to the agenda and put some things as conditions of the permit rather than the application having to come back in 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. So I'm just putting that out there as an option. So before the final resolution is adopted, I'd be happy to help council with some of these points.
follow-up, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Russell. I appreciate that. I think that's a good perhaps way of addressing that. And you're right. I think the engineering guideline and from the RDN is as well pre-development levels, like have the same. So no zero water runoff. We don't want any in pools or lakes. And the reason it's significant is, like I mentioned, of the DPAs, but also we see, yes, it's in the report, but when we see some projects, I don't want to mention anyone's on air, but we see a lot of developments that happen that did mention that there will be no net increase, but then we see not real any stormwater capture on site. So it's kind of a disappointment to see that. So I like what you're suggesting, but I think if we refer it back to staff, and I think a thorough work is done on these two critical issues for me, I think there's very likely that we'll see some revisions being made rather than an amendment, which I think still is a good idea as proposed. Mr. Russell, thank you.
And keep in mind too, that the reduction in the GHGs are now eaten up by the drive-through anyhow. Just saying. Well, you know. Councillor Gore, you're okay then? Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm going to go to Councillor Martin if not. I'll come back to you if you want to think about it. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was thinking about the traffic situation and coming off Arbutus going into the development. And I was wondering if it's possible to have those cars not going back out that way. Is there another way to have it going so there isn't a lot of light? So those people on Arbutus have a lot of trees there, but they don't have a fence across the street there. And so that was what I was thinking out loud in my mind. If they would not have to be going back out that way, the light goes right into their place. So maybe one way in. So it's just an idea. I don't know if that's realistic, but quite a few people will be going out that way.
But people, including the people using the daycare, would also have to get out. The lot would be actually going right on Arbutus as well. So to make them go out the highway instead would be problematic, I would think. I know what you're saying. You're trying to limit the amount of traffic.
Well, they could go around and go to the right and then go onto Northwest Bay Road up that way where the light is. There's a light there, or there's an automatic turn drive there where you can go to the right without a light.
I think we'll leave it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
To have a one-way in and not both going back and forth. Because that would cut down the light across the street. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks through to Mr. Russell. The notion that there might be able to be some conditions and help with that, I think is really something worth considering, because I think that for many of us around this table, there's just some missing information is missing. I think that may be in the original, the detail around some of the landscaping is just a little bit hard to follow here around the engineering report. So rather than having to ask that this be referred back to staff and then somebody has to come back again, I mean, if it's a case of some missing information, that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's why I'm including the conversation as long as we need to be satisfied before we take this next vote. And any further questions to Mr. Russell, because he's here, would be appropriate. Councillor Wood and then Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. Just speaking to Councillor Gore's point about what the ADP also raised. They had a comment, the panel recommends strengthening the landscape frontage along Island Highway East to better reflect the intent of the guidelines for substantial vegetative buffers. And then just looking at all of the information, the DPA does ask for continuous strip of trees at least 20 meters deep, measured from the property line inward, to my understanding. Existing trees kept or planted, new trees added. And so although the DPA isn't prescriptive, and they have to stick with that, it's more of a guideline that we've already kind of laid out as a city. I appreciate that the applicant spoke to all the drive-through questions we had. The form and character, which is what we're addressing today. I think it looks pretty good. I like that we know the local business that is currently interested in it, although we have to think down the road a little bit in case it's a different business later on. And so I think there are some considerations to headlights and noise, which we've also spoken to. But like I said in my comments for the delegation, we don't get the chance to speak to tree canopy very often for your way in from the highway on 19A. And so as much as I don't like to delay things for someone who's trying to, bring improvements to the city that is now just kind of a vacant lot, daycare is great, et cetera. I do want to seize the opportunity to try to get kind of as many trees along your way into the city as possible. And I don't know how we can expedite that process for the applicant. But I really appreciate Councillor Gore bringing that up. And I think I'm on board with making sure that we get the most we can for trees along the way. Thank you.
Councillor Gore, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to staff. And I'm sorry if I missed this point that was brought forward. But seeing, and I think you've heard a lot at this table, Mr. Russell, about the concern for a drive-through. The CS1 zone, that what it is, allows for a drive-through, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Having said that, and now it's also is in the resort lands. This is designated as resort area, Craigby Resort area. Is there provision, like, is there even acceptance on the proponent side that perhaps the drive-through may not be a good idea? Like, have they looked at perhaps how much is it so strongly driven that yes, we need a drive-through? Because in this proposal, like I think a lot of us have mentioned, is great. A building that was burnt down, there's nothing, in the vacant lot. It will revitalize that part of our town. But really, like a drive-through as you come into the resorts, can you change course? Is it possible for you to not have a drive-through? Like, and I'm sorry if it's already been addressed. I know we've been stuck in this drive-through line for a very long time. Over an hour, we discussed this. But I can really support, like, I love this proposal. Like, there's so many good things about this with the daycare and the tree retention and possibly getting the 20-meter tree buffer and all the good stuff. I would love us to not have a drive-through at the location if it's possible. And going down the road, a business that may want a drive-through now, I don't want to be stuck with a drive-through. And I can tell you because I live right near a McDonald's drive-through. It's not a pleasant experience, to tell you the truth, to be living there. Currently, it's a very nice and quiet area, and I think a lot of people cherish that and want to protect that. And that's why I think the mayor heard a lot of concerns about a potential drive-through going there. So have you spoken to the proponent about possibly not having a drive-through and looking at alternatives? Thank you.
Mr. Russell, if you would, please.
So I wouldn't discuss private conversations that I've had with anyone on an application because those conversations are protected by Freedom of Information Privacy Protective legislation. So the developer can certainly disclose to council if they've had those conversations, but out of respect for their privacy, I certainly wouldn't comment on that.
Oh, CEO Kaler, go ahead.
Not Councillor Kiva again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to mention, we've had this discussion a couple of times on some other files too, where council is not the proponent. And so we are obligated as staff to bring forward what the applicant asks for. And so they fill out a comprehensive application. They, have many professionals involved. They have lots of reasons why they put forward what they put forward. And quite often, like some of our downtown zone has about 45 different things you could do there. And the applicant picks one or two of them that meets their dreams and their hopes and their design and the, surrounding area. And it's not staff's right really to muddle in that or try to be the proponent's designer or professional. And I think we've had some conversations about cautioning council on the same thing. And I think the mayor spoke to it with your, wannabe planner hats on and wannabe engineer hats. And I totally get that. Like, it really does make a lot of sense as people that we want to do that. But there's procedural fairness and administrative fairness that we as staff have to follow. So it's like, often we planning takes the heat for applications that come forward, but it's really, we're the receiver of someone's dreams and proposals, and we do the technical review on the existing policies, bylaws, best practices, standards that are out there, and present that to council. And so, there's not really room for suggestions back and forth. A lot of people will meet with councillors informally before they start the process and ask for your feedback. But at this point, we're not really in a position to do that for council. So that's just a reiteration of a conversation we've had a couple of times.
Thank you for that, CEO Kaler. Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add a couple of comments, particularly regarding the landscaping. And I realize that the report that has come through for us might be at times a bit challenging to read and decipher, particularly since it comes in sideways and all that. But I would like to explain that as I did attend all the ADP meetings regarding this proposal, that what's called Building B, which is the existing building that is there, because it is actually the building that's there, they're not actually required to upgrade any sort of landscaping or make changes to the lack of landscaping, which is in front of them. At least that's my understanding. However, with discussion in the ADP, and they've come forth that they are in fact proposing to add some trees across the front of there and enhance that landscaping somewhat. Also, then again, in response to some of the ADP recommendations to soften the look of just all these parking areas, a lot of pavement, sort of a strip mall kind of a look. They have in fact added some plantings that are actually in and around closer to the fronts of the buildings and by the parking area. So I just like council to be aware of that, because as I say, there are some areas where they were not actually required. That was my understanding, that they were not actually required to add landscaping. And also in the rear along Northwest Bay Road, there's a large area that will provide call it a swale or whatever you like. And again, added considerable landscaping, because it is true that the first proposal that came forth was somewhat lacking in that regard. So that particular aspect was really improved, and the ADP generally liked what they did.
Thank you. Councillor Grenz.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Maybe just add to what Councillor Beal mentioned there is I also have followed this project through a few stages of the ADP process, and the proponent has made considerable efforts to accommodate the requests, and this project has transformed quite a bit from the original offering that they brought forward. So I think speaking to the aspects of this that are in our lane to look at, I definitely hear the concerns around drive-through. Although I will add, as a parent, I have greatly benefited from drive-throughs. Really hard to unload 3 small kids out of the car when they're cranky and hungry. So I've definitely taken advantage of drive-throughs, and it is in the zoning. So I don't really know how much we can restrict giving a development permit when it's in the zoning. We'd have to rezone it to remove that aspect. So if they're willing to do that, that's the trick, right? And it is their right to do it. And I am more comforted though knowing who the current tenant is that they've lined up for the drive-through, and I'm also pleased to see that tenant will still have an outdoor seating area, which I think is something that really adds to the de-strip mallification of the site to make it more of a place where people will linger and and have community connections and not just drive through. So I'm overall happy with moving this to the next step. But if there are some urgent items that that Councillor Gore has not been satisfied on, I'll happy to hear those, or Councillor Wood or any of the councillors really. But I think that the concerns around tree buffer and landscaping have been addressed through the ADP process before it even got to this table.
Thank you, Councillor Grants. Let's all try and condense what I've heard here, folks. Great discussion. I think where we've come from and where we ended up here is a considerably different place. And I'm very pleased with that, because it's been a very involved conversation with the proponents as well. And I'm very pleased with that. And then the proponent, and for your benefit, Councillor Grants is still in the audience right now listening. So he hasn't abandoned us yet, screaming and crying. So what we've satisfied some very major finds here is that the sidewalk is going to be at a standard that we find quite acceptable. And I think that's a major win. The tree buffer is going to be a major win as well for this development and for the area of Resort Drive, the Craig Bay development area. I think that is another big win. The outside development and the backside development of this was another major benefit that has come about much from the ADP as well, with great thanks to them and their contributions as well. I think we've got a good project that's going to possibly happen. I think also the proponent realizes that if maybe perhaps they find that they could maybe attract a different tenant for the other buildings in the area that would benefit by not having a drive-through there, maybe that could be deleted from it and he wouldn't get any complaint back from council. Just maybe that could happen. And that would be great, because I think that knowing that only maybe one or two tenants have really expressed an interest to locating in this location, other ones may be saying things like, oh, it'd be great if that wasn't for that drive-through. And they might be able to say, well, you know, that's not written in stone. And the council is not going to hold us to making sure we have that drive-through, and making sure that maybe we have a better area for a courtyard area with lots of trees and maybe water features to make it a great spot. The proponent has heard all of that and addressed everything that we have. Our staff has addressed everything that we need to have. So in my mind, I think everybody's been given enough time to make their input. So I'm going to call the question. I will be supporting this until Councillor Gore asks another question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification then. So, Ms. Gaylor, the two things that I mentioned, could those be added at the afterwards with the motion to amend the development permit?
Yes, CAO Keller, go ahead.
Yes. So yes, there's, as the director mentioned, there's two ways you can do it. You can either not approve the motion that's on the floor, or you can add who moved and seconded? With the approval of the movers and seconders, which was Councillor Wood and Councillor Beal, you could add that the following items be added as a term of permit. So you're basically approving the motion as was on the agenda, but you're adding those two items, 3B, the tree buff, improvement to the tree buffer, and number 9, which was improvement to the stormwater runoff objectives, be included in term of permit. And that would actually allow staff at a technical level to see what's possible. And then the permit's issued today, basically.
So basically to amend the motion on the floor
Yes.
with the approval, would that meet with your satisfaction?
Please, thank you.
Okay, and the mover of this was,
So it was, just for clarification, it was Councillor Wood moved, Councillor Beal seconded the motion that's on the agenda.
Right.
And it would now be, the permit would be issued, but with the additional conditions that essentially the objectives be buffered up for item 3B and number 9 of DPA number 7. And those would form new terms of the permit. So the permit you have on your agenda will have 2 additional terms added
Addendums, okay.
for that. And it will be, to meet basically, like to enhance those objectives, to provide more trees in the buffer and improve the stormwater runoff percent or
To pre-development
target
levels,
to
yes.
pre-development flows. Yeah.
Thank you.
does that meet your goals? Do I have approval from Councillor Wood and Councillor Beal to amend the motion? Councillor Wood is saying yes. Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Councillor Beal is actually a little bit concerned about the tree buffer. As I said, what was brought forth to the ADP was really worked on. They got feedback, and at the end of the day, they were quite happy with what was there. My concern is that the images that have come through don't necessarily show that clearly. So I'm just wondering if Councillor Gore still wants to include both of those conditions or only one.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Gore, if you would actually, if you want to strengthen that tree buffer
Yes,
language, maybe that would be good.
is that the intent? I'm not sure what Councillor Beal was mentioning, but what I heard, Mayor, is even from Andrea, when she was presenting that there's opportunities for them to work with the city to improve that tree buffer. So making that part of the permit, I think, and it gives them a little nudge that this is what we would like to see. And I think CEO has a comment on that as well.
CEO Kaler, if you have caught the new slightly improved language.
Yeah, so the one other option, if the mover and seconder are not willing to allow the amendment as a friendly amendment, then you can vote on the amendment. And so that's the majority vote. And so there's a slightly different process there. If Councillor Beal is not comfortable with the enhanced objective and Councillor Gore wants that's the other option.
Councillor Bill has now agreed to the amendment. Thank you. Thank you. No pressure. Okay, to the amended motion on the floor. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
So if I may, that's carried as amended.
Thank you. So we're good? Okay. Are we moving on? Bring in the ice bucket. Oh, man.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I think I would be, people would be mad at me if I didn't mention on May the 4th that Ayla got here at warp speed. So I think that was really great.
She did. Oh. The fourth is with her. Oh, good job, Ayla. She got here at warp speed because of the date. May the fourth be with you? Yes. And that's from Obi-Wan. Let's recognize that. That's my email. That's good to know, folks. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item on our and thank you for your patience, Anwar. Yeah, thank you so much. We got a great project coming up. I know you're going to deliver. Thank you. Next, we have on our reports, we have the next report on the agenda is from the manager of engineering regarding the Parksville Pathway Project Phase. That's a lot of P's. Okay, so the Parksville Pathway Project Phase 2 routing option. To confirm the desired routing for Phase 2 of the pedestrian pathway project. Sorry? Yes. So we're going to separate the first motion. The first motion is that the report from the manager of engineering dated April 29th, 2026, entitled Parksville Pathway Project Phase 2 Routing Options be received. Do I move in or seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Carries unanimous. Do I have a mover or seconder for the second recommendation that staff be directed to proceed with design of pathway option 1 from McElhaney's Parksville Pathway Phase 2 conceptual design memo? I have moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Martin. Discussion, please. Councillor Beal, you're first at the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say, having reviewed all three options and in fact had an opportunity to visit the area, all three areas just recently and consider it. Overall, I do prefer option 1 for a number of reasons, but not necessarily exactly the way it's presented. And so I am wondering if there's what the options for option 1 might be. Is it possible for either to make a motion to go back to staff to have a look at that, or do we discuss it here? You know, what can we be doing to, if one likes, I like the route overall. However, I think that there may be other ways to proceed with it rather than every detail that's been suggested in this.
CEO Kaler, and the wording of the recommendation number 2 is somewhat restricted to option 1 and so forth. I would like to have a robust conversation about the benefits of option 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, and that would be kind of my thoughts on it, is that if we could have more of a Councilor
Yeah.
Beal has very rightly suggested
Sure.
going into COTW.
Yeah, what I might suggest is that we refer this to a COTW, maybe at the next meeting or some other meeting, just so that we can have the right staff here, because a couple of staff are actually away, like not in the office this week, in parks, for example. And even though we did get her here at warp speed or lightning speed or whatever speed, Ayla may not be able to fully support that way. And this, we could probably, with the committee of the whole, we could get better maps and provide some handouts and things like that. So we could probably better support council having that more open discussion. Does council have a preference on the date for it to come back as a committee of the whole item?
I guess next meeting would be great,
The
but
20th?
because you are probably looking to get some answers pretty quick.
Yeah.
Providing that the necessary
The 20th.
staff are in place.
Yeah, we can, if council is agreeable, we could defer this to the 20th and we can hold it during the regular council meeting.
Yes.
We just go into committee at that.
Yes.
So yeah, we can do that. It would be good to have the motion.
Okay, so Councilor Beal, are you okay with that? You were the.
I love it. Thank
Okay,
you.
you're okay to defer. Okay,
And if I may, we can defer, we do have a motion on the floor, but once we have the motion to defer, that holds that in space and that would come back after the committee of the whole.
okay, and do we need a seconder for Mo?
We do, we have.
We defer. It's by Councilor Wood. Now there's no discussion. All those in favor of the deferment? That is deferred. Big things happen on May the 4th. The next report on the agenda is from the Manager of Engineering regarding the Alberni Highway Pedestrian Improvement Tender Award. To award a contract for the construction of the Alberni Highway Pedestrian Improvements. But I move or seconder for the recommendations. Do you want, can we take all 3? Good to go. Moved by Councilor Grimm, seconded by Councilor Wood. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Gore.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor, to our staff. As you know, Ms. Kaler, I've sent an email previously about what we learned at AVICC with the Saanich, District of Saanich initiatives with the rewilding project and incorporating the stormwater management along their roads when they did the improvements, also incorporating their transportation plan to slow down the traffic, using the trees on the boulevard. At this time, I want to know if, rather than one-off, does staff have that direction already to incorporate those master plans when they do these? What I was really impressed at Saanich's presentation was those little rain gardens that they created, you know, like every, I don't know, 50 meters or so. So there was all that rain water capture into the ground. Also, just adding that character to the neighborhood. So as the mayor was talking about, I think previously, about traffic calming, whether renaming streets, whatever, I think this goes in hand with what we are trying to achieve for our neighborhoods. So I know this is about just Alberni, but I know Jensen is also recently awarded the contract, and Stanford. So do you need a formal direction from council that when we have these street improvements, that those master plans be incorporated into the design and the contract that goes out?
I may.
I understand that, but I don't think that this is appropriate at this time. Yeah. but-
I was maybe
Be-
just gonna suggest, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we're at
Yes.
a tender stage for this particular project, and so there's tons of contract law around contracts being issued and contract A, contract B. So I think at this particular point, we went to council, got approval from council at the budget stage for these capital projects. And changes like what you're mentioning are not currently in our standards, I don't believe. I did see the email where for some of the ones that are at an earlier planning phase, staff are going to go in and do some assessments of what the cost implications would be. Because that is a significantly higher level of service that we probably don't have included in the budgets. But there are some tricky legal issues around when you issue a tender and you get bids back, it's based on what you put in the tender. And so I think for the one before you today for the Alberni sidewalks is based on what we have in the budget and what we scoped out and what our standards are. So I would say at this point, it's trickier to add that into this particular project. That doesn't mean that council couldn't add a new service level when you're talking in the next budget around categories of roads. We do not have direction from council on implementing those master plans yet. We've just presented information on the master plans. We don't have like a list of projects. So what we would normally see like with the transportation master plan or any master plan is a list of projects that are prioritized, accounted for in the budget, and then planned out in the work plan each year. And we don't have those specifics on all of those master plans yet.
Yeah, I would think that this is just not the appropriate time. The appropriate time would maybe to consider a notice of motion to review what the design standards are at some time for future projects. But for these ones, whether it's Alberni and Stanford, that's already well past the engineering stage. We can't retroactively go and say, and also include this. And so all I'm saying, this is just probably not the appropriate time to do this, but just keep it under advisement that if this is what you want to confirm, maybe we already have that standard built in. So I would suggest that that you're trying to do, maybe our staff already have that built in. We don't know that. I know what you saw in Saanich was a great idea. Maybe you want to contact staff and just ask do you already have the following or something equivalent to it. And if not, then there would be maybe a motion at a later time for future. Could you consider the following be included into our standards and be included in budget processors? Yeah. CAO Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to mention again, and to remind everybody watching at home and here, the OCP process is usually where those things are debated and discussed, and you get community engagement on what we call a willingness to pay. And so I think there will be a lot of opportunity to decide what the standards are. And we've actually had the opposite happen, I think, on one of your previous council terms, I can't remember which, where staff had actually proposed reducing street trees for cost because that particular council was very concerned about the gold level service on some streets. So an OCP process is a very good place to start that conversation and get priorities from the community on where they are willing to pay more and where they would prefer to pay less. And so I think there will be a lot of opportunity coming up to kind of already in the budget, already on the work plan. So not for free, but included in what we've already costed. I think I'm just checking. I have a big list. Every time you guys mention something, I put it on there. So I will add that on there as well. And then we'll give that to the consultant to formulate the consultation strategy around.
Thank you. And we have that coming up. So that's great. So speaking to the motion that's on the floor, Councillor Martin.
All I was going to say was that I felt what these ideas is, I support this, but to expand on this would be the OCP. And that's what I was going to say. That was
Yeah.
all.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's
support
just
this.
not the time.
Not the time, no.
Yeah, because this tender is has already been received. Yeah. Thank you. I get it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I support it.
Yeah. Thanks. Councillor Beal, to the
Thank
motion on
you.
the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say how exciting it is to think that we can get to this point where we will have sidewalk down Alberni connecting all the way through to, I guess it's Lee maybe one beyond that, but it's, you know, overdue in many respects, but these things take time and money, and it's really wonderful to think that this will be going ahead.
I agree 100%. As you know, with all the amount of development that's going up at that end of town and that very weak length of safe transportation route, being in between here in town is going to be improved immensely. So I'm very pleased that staff was able to get on this as fast as they did. Any further conversation regarding the amendment, or not the amendment, just the motions on the floor? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Next report on the agenda is from the Manager of Finance regarding the 2025 Annual Development Cost Charges Report to provide development cost charge activity details for 2025. You already saw the report. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Thank you. Any discussion regarding this? None? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. The next report on the agenda is from the Director of Finance as well, amended 2026 to 20.
Sorry, could these be taken up individually?
Separated?
Thank you.
Do I have a mover or seconder for the first being that the report from the Director of Finance dated April 21st, 2026, entitled Amended 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan be received? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? I see none. All those in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Do I have a mover or seconder for the next recommendation that the amended 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw be advanced to the statutory process? Mover or seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? Councillor Gar.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I know last week we approved the amendment where we reduced the property taxes by 1%. During the audit committee meeting, we all saw, and even at the start of this council meeting, we saw the presentation from Mr. Vanderhost about the surplus that we have. So I move that we amend this financial plan to have a further 1% tax break. So I'm amending the motion on the floor.
You're proposing an amendment.
I'm proposing an amendment to the amended financial plan to reduce the property tax requisition by a further 1% from the unrestricted surplus.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Beal. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank staff. I know it takes a lot of work, and this council did a lot of work in going through all the details that we spent a lot of time on. I wasn't following that there was another surplus that we had from last year, which we just found out last week. So I believe if a portion of that is utilized to reduce the property taxes by a further 1%, that will be fiscally prudent, in my opinion. The interest that we've earned on our investments has been more than what we expected. And I think it's time that we can give people a little bit of break on their taxes. And I fully understand, even if we gave them a 0% tax increase, there will be questions because people are going to face a very high tax requisitions for the things that we don't control, like the hospital district and the school board and the library. So I feel there's an opportunity at this council again, and if we are able to meet the deadline of May 15th through our staff, I would love us to have that amendment and a further tax reduction of 1%. Thank you.
This is at the last minute, and I had no further notice of this, so I'm going to refer to CEO Kaler. Is this even possible at this stage? We've already gone through all the work of all the financial plans as we've done right to this stage, and to consider this if you can advise the implications of that, please.
Thank you. I actually didn't really know about this until about 5 minutes before the meeting, so I'll start, and then if it's okay with council, I'll perhaps defer to the Director of Finance on some things, but my initial thought is 10, we are legislated to have this adopted in 10 days. So I don't believe, without me chaining my staff to the desk for the next 10 days, I don't see how that's possible, because we started our budget meetings in October, I believe. And I know when I see how much the Director of Finance and their team are here, it is a massive amount of work. Like council sees a short presentation, well, not short, they're usually an hour and a half, but it is months and months of work, spreadsheets, calculations, working with, we have 100 staff, we have 10 directors working with them for weeks and weeks on end to do everything that we can do. We already came back with a proposal to council to reduce the 1% based on using accumulated surplus from vacant positions, about 300,000, I believe. Jenna can correct me. It's hard to remember everything. But I think we also had a lot of catch up to do, where we had councils that gave direction to go at 0 or 1% tax increases. And we know we've had presentations to council from the experts on the stormwater management. I think it's a little bit challenging when we hear from council in the 1 minute that they want to increase the levels of service on things that are very expensive. And then at the literally next item, we're talking about, not putting the reserves in place per our policy that was also adopted by this council. So I'm a little bit blindsided by it. So I apologize if I sound a little frazzled, but I just don't see how that's possible 10 days prior. And, there's a weekend coming in there too. And we have to have clear days between when we adopt bylaws. I honestly just can't see how that would be possible, not having had time to sort of digest what the options might be. Perhaps at this point, I'll stop squirming and ask if the Director of Finance has any ideas. She's had a couple of hours longer than me to think about it, if that's okay with the mayor.
Mrs. Holmes, if you could please address the issue on the floor, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I agree with what the CAO said in terms of this is a little bit blindsided after about 8 months of work for it to be a very last minute decision. And it would be very, very difficult to pull this off, because just one change necessitates rebalancing the financial plan, redoing the bylaw, recalculating the tax rates, running the tests through our system, redoing the tax rates bylaw. So it's not just one change. The other thing that concerns me about this a little bit is I think that we as staff and the directors identify where there are carry forwards on projects that weren't incomplete. So as much as possible, we bring that money forward that's already been taxed and don't re-tax for projects that are in the financial plan. But our surplus policy that was adopted by council in 2024 indicates that after the audited financial statements, you bring back an assessment of the optimal balance of that unrestricted surplus especially. And so our manager of finance is in the process, now that the statements have been passed, of bringing that back to council so that you have an opportunity to evaluate alternatives for that surplus. So just picking out the interest income being over budget doesn't look at the whole picture of where we actually might need some extra reserves. So we've had lots of reports talking about our infrastructure deficit. Council may choose to take that surplus instead and put it towards the capital, which is supportive of our long-term asset management planning and long-term financial planning. Or you might choose to put it towards an income reserve, knowing that next year we're likely to see that very significant RCMP increase. And if it's not next year, it's likely the next year, or the significant increases that are coming for wastewater next year. And so what happens when we use surplus to reduce the tax rate is you need to do it even more so next year to get back to where we started. So moving ahead with just choosing to pull out the interest income doesn't look at the whole financial scenario. And I think our auditor today was making reference to that. You need to look at the whole picture, not just 1 year. So even though our financial statement for 2028 may show a surplus. What does our 5-year financial plan show? And as I pointed out in the report with respect to this financial plan, there are very significant deficits for 27 through 30 related to those items that we've talked about. So it's a little bit narrow in scope to just look at 1 year. I think it's, and even just within 5 years, we see the need. And so I've provided my recommendations to you on where I thought increases should be. Some of those you take and some you don't, and that's totally okay. But 1, at the late hour, and 2, with such a narrow scope, I certainly wouldn't recommend doing that. And to bring back to you an analysis related to what might be the considerations will take some time. And it's not something that I would want to ask the manager of finance to quickly dash through. We want to make sure we're bringing you accurate numbers. The final comment I would make on this is that even though it does look like we made more interest income than we did, and we did, the accounting rules around that require that we accrue the interest income. So if I've invested in a 4-year GIC, for example, this year will show the income, next year will show the income, next year will show the income. We don't actually get the cash until the 4th year when the GIC matures. And so this is another one where the scope being so narrow on the investment income doesn't look at, do we actually have the cash that's reflected in those, right? If in a very narrow reading of this, if all I invested in was 4-year GICs, but we got a higher return in that 4th year, we don't actually have the cash related to that yet, and we won't for 3 years. So that would be my other comment on just looking at the interest income or investment income on that. So yeah, I think a very challenging thing to do.
Thank you, Mrs. Holmes. I won't be supporting this in any way, and I'm going to go to first-time speaker, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many years ago, I had an experience with this through a strata. And we had a president who was able to bring the budget down to 1% increase or something. And everyone thought it was wonderful. And I didn't think so. And I tell you, the next year it was 11%. And people don't like this. They want consistency. And that was just a small thing, in a strata that was, a couple of 3 million, but nothing like this. And people were very happy when they saw that we brought it down 1%. I had many comments to me, and they were grateful, and that we had that consideration of what's going on in our community. And so I would not want to be jumping around like this. I mean, Jed has explained it all to us, but never. Be very conservative and careful with our money, with their money. So.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
I had that experience.
Thank you. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did second this amendment, anticipating and hoping to hear from our Director of Finance to edify us. And thank you very much for that information. I'm not a CPA, but I've certainly enjoyed sitting in on the audit committee and looking at things and learning that there are such things as accounting surpluses and different sorts of surpluses. So I do appreciate that it is quite complex. But I did look forward to getting more information about this. So thank you, our Director of Finance.
Councillor Wood, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Through yourself to the Director of Finance. What were our unrestricted surplus in September of previous year? Less than 12 months ago, what were unrestricted surplus? In the millions, I think it was. While you're looking for that, and then my next question to our Director of Finance is, what would 1% property tax increase be? I think we were kind of somewhere between $170,000 and $215,000. So whatever the number was that we've been dealing with for unrestricted surplus since the beginning of the budgeting process, I don't think there's any revelations that we've seen today that suddenly there's enough somewhere to cover 1% property tax increase. So, in my opinion, it would be disrespectful for council to kind of throw away all of the work that staff has done so far in this process, as if there's you know, again, some sort of revelation that we bumped into a bunch of money. And now we're going to think about, you know, somewhere in the range of $200,000 to put down on property taxes. So I just don't think that it's fair to staff to bring it up at this point, and it could have been brought up so many months earlier to respect staff's process and all the work they do. That's my thoughts on it. Thanks.
Mrs. Holmes, if you would, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor, a couple of comments. One, our 1% of taxes is about $210,000 now. So you were in the ballpark for sure. Part of how we got to the point of being able to suggest to council that the property tax rate could be dropped by 1 percentage point was doing an evaluation. As I suggested, when we get to our year end, a lot of the numbers come together. And one of those was the realization that we actually had done better on our investments than we expected. There were higher returns through 2025 than I had estimated when we did the 2025 financial plan. So as a result of that, I'm working with the manager of finance to reevaluate our estimates for investment income. We actually increased the investment income in the 2026 financial plan, thereby creating a little bit of room, as you saw at that meeting, of about $200,000 where we might be in a place to drop that property tax rate. The other thing that I would note, if you look at the financial statements, you'll see quite a significant decrease between the 2024 year end and the 2025 year end in our unrestricted operating surplus. If council recalls, when we adopted these policies and have been doing a lot of work around reserves, we took a lot of that unrestricted surplus and we said, what's the optimal balance per our policy is 6 to 9 months of expenses to have in our unrestricted surplus. That gives us enough working capital to respond to capital grants that require matching. It allows us to have enough money in our bank account to pay everything we need until our property taxes come in. Above that amount, you had an opportunity based on my recommendations to transfer some of that to capital reserves, to income reserves, to contingency reserves that put the city in a much better financial position to respond to things that may arise. And that was really excellent work because what it did was it didn't leave anything in our unrestricted surplus that wasn't needed. The auditor shared with us that there are many, many municipalities that in January go to the MFA for short-term borrowing because they don't have enough unrestricted surplus to get them to June when they collect their property taxes. We have never been even close to that scenario, and I would never want us to be, which is why our policy says we want to have that buffer in our unrestricted surplus. What we also then achieved was that we put a bunch of money in capital reserves, which meant then subsequent years' property taxes didn't need to be used to bump those up to that level. So it was a win-win in many different ways. And so, yes, you're correct. There haven't been any kind of surprises from what we went through in the fall with respect to unrestricted surplus. Other than that interest income, we did better than we thought, but then that got brought forward to council and reflected in our ability to drop at 1%. So I think that just confirms what you said, Councillor Wood, but it is important to understand all the great work that council has done with respect to reserves, the unrestricted surplus, the surplus policy to really put council in that place to be able to follow that as a best practice, do it annually, and have that discussion about where those surpluses go based on the risks and the needs of the city at the time. And that's really what Corey was trying to communicate was you need to look at the broader picture when you're looking at those surpluses and say, where do we need this? And respond to what's happening in the asset management plans, the long-term financial plans, and the 5-year financial plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grens, are you okay?
Yeah, maybe just a quick comment is I can appreciate where the councillor is coming from on this because we are seeing significant property tax increases, like the overall bill over the past several years has increased quite a bit. It's not just the Parksville portion, of course. There's increase in school tax, library tax, RDN, and a significant increase in the hospital district tax, which is definitely a challenge for folks who are struggling just to stay in their homes. And we've seen increases across the board, most recently with gas prices really hitting people hard. So I definitely understand where this is coming from. However, the question is, how do we best try to mitigate the increases in taxes. And at this stage of the game is not the time. Especially when we've been voting to add projects to the budget over the past several months. We've been adding different projects that we've supported that now end up in this financial plan. I think to now at this point to reduce it is just not the most prudent way to go about it, but still recognizing the importance of trying to keep taxes as low as possible, which I think we are all trying to do at this table. The final thing I'll say is that with regard to the windfall of the increase in the returns on investment, easy come, easy go. We can just as easily have a year where we get below the forecast amount. And in those situations, we would also not want to have to arbitrarily or quickly or last minute increase taxes as well. So, so I think we're in good hands with our staff here to make sure that we have as even of a tax increase year over year as level as possible, so we don't have all these shocks along the way.
Thank you, Councillor Grens. Yeah, just to sum up as a final speaker, I'm not in support of this suggestion at this point. I think it's an incredible disservice to not actually respect this council when presented with the options, as Jetta has just mentioned anyways, options for reserves and so forth, that were debated robustly at this council table as to the advantages of that. And the options were given to us as council to do a reserve of X amount or X plus 5% or X plus 10% to actually put those reserves in place. And we all had that discussion here. And we came to that agreement knowing that this is what it's going to be. And the final analysis was, and that's what the tax increase is going to be. To suggest that we can go back on all of that work we've done is just, it seems like a total disrespect to the staff and the council that put so much time into it. So I will not be supporting this at this time. And Councillor Gore, you made the motion, you have final say, and then I'll call the question on your amendment.
Yes, thank you. First of all, it wasn't meant to be any disrespect to staff. And I think I did bring it up to Jetta as soon as I could. I looked at different options, and Councillor Wood suggesting that it's being disrespectful to staff at this time of the proposal. Well, I think I mentioned in my opening that I first found out about this surplus when we were at the audit committee last week. I could not have planned it 6 months ago. Maybe you could have, but I could not. And when I came up with that surplus number, it also had the DCC figures. I think we got more DCC revenue than we expected. So not just the investment income, but it was just a thought. I was hoping, like Councillor Grens mentioned, maybe the best way we can give people a little tax break, realizing that we are here to make decisions for our constituents, the best of our abilities that we can. There are a lot of people that are struggling with the cost of living and everything. That's what it was meant for. I have a question for staff. When can council expect a report from manager of finance in terms of the surplus, the best way to utilize the surplus? Thank you.
Ms. Holmes, if you could, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Gore. We have typically provided that by the beginning of July to council, and I expect that timeline is still reasonable this year.
A follow-up?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So is it possible then, when that report is presented, that perhaps an option would be given to council to utilize the surplus to lower the taxes in the future plan, financial plan? Thank you.
Through the mayor to Councillor Gore. So there would be an opportunity to put that in an income reserve, which has been established, that it could be used in a subsequent year. Yeah.
Good. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Councillor Gore, all those opposed? Those opposed are Councillor Martin, Councillor Grens, Councillor Wood, Councillor Beale, Mayor O'Brien. That does not pass. Thank you. Back to the original motion on the floor that the amended 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw be advanced to the statutory process. I believe we already have movers and seconders in place, do we not? Yes, we do. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. The next report on the agenda is from the Director of Finance regarding the 2026 municipal property tax rates. Provide information to council regarding 2026 tax rates bylaw. Council, do you want to take both recommendations at the same time, or do you want to separate? Okay, do I have a mover or seconder for the two recommendations on the floor? That the report from the Director of Finance dated April 21, 2026, entitled 2026 Municipal Property Tax Rates be received in part 2, that the 2026 tax rates bylaw be advanced to the statutory process. I move a seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Wood. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. The next report on the agenda is also from the Director of Finance, 2026 to sanitary sewer utility rates increases regarding the adjusted sewer utility user rates and sewer parcel tax rate. Do I move or seconder for all the recommendations as noted? Moved by Councillor Wood. Pardon me. Second by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Any discussion? None. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Time for a drink. The next report on the agenda is the Director of Finance regarding the 2026 water utility rate increases regarding to adjust the water utility user rates and water parcel tax rate. Do I move or seconder for the recommendations as noted? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. For bylaws, under 3 readings, we have the 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw, 2026 to 2030, number 1599.1. Do I move a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. 3 readings on the bylaws of tax rates bylaw, 2026, number 1601. Do I move or seconder for the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, second by Councillor Grenz. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Now the bylaw for 3 readings on the sanitary and storm sewerage system amendment bylaw 2026 number 1319.23. Do I move or seconder for the recommendation, please? Councillor Martin, moved. Councillor Beal, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Carries. Bylaws 3 readings, water service system amendment bylaw 2026, number 1320.37. Do I move or seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Beal moves, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries unanimous. 3 readings for the sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 2026, number 1493.13. Do I move it or second for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Bylaws, 3 readings. Water parcel tax amendment bylaw 2026, number 1494.11. Do I have a mover seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Grenz moves, seconded by Councillor Beal. Got to include everybody. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries. Motions from previous meetings. We have 1 motion from a previous meeting by Councillor Gore. Councillor Gore, would you like to?
The noise bylaw final adoption.
What did I skip a page? Sorry?
Bylaw point B, Mayor.
The bylaw fence notice bylaw, final adoption.
This guy here. I think is what they're looking for.
Thanks, Sean. No,
Between.
no. No, it's a motion. Yeah, let's just do it from here. This is the only one that's not in my notes here. Thanks, John.
That's the amendment. That's the amendment bylaw.
Okay, we have here it is, I think I saw that. Hold on, I'm just gonna back up because make sure. No, that's okay. We'll do it off the agenda. Now, for final adoption, we have the bylaw offense notice enforcement amendment bylaw 2026, number 1486.14 regarding the adjudication registry agreement. Do I have a mover or seconder for the motion as noted? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? It carries. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to go to motions from previous meetings. We have one motion from a previous meeting from Councillor Gore regarding the Oceanside Task Force. Councillor Gore.
Thank you,
if you
Mayor.
would.
Yes, thank you. Through you to the recommendation is that council invite the Oceanside Task Force on Homelessness to appear as a delegation to provide an update on their activities and future vision. I look for a seconder, then I can speak to it.
Seconded by Councillor Beal. Discussion, please. This is just the motion anyway, so go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you know, this motion was presented after we had a discussion about Councillor Wood's participation at as a private citizen at the task force this meeting. There was a lot of interest at this council that they would like to hear more about the task force since we no longer have a liaison. So to keep the council up to date on their activities. So now I'm requesting that council adopt this motion. And before I proceed, I would like staff to ask a question of them. When would they be able to accommodate this request if we were to put a time on it for a future date?
If I may.
CAO Kaler, go ahead, please.
Thank you. We can't definitively say that yet because when we set each agenda, there are certain things that are required to have a delegation. So applications for development, for example. We also have kind of a first come, first serve. So there's people that have applied that we slot into the appropriate places. But I think like we could say at the next available opening or something of that nature. And then what we usually do is work with it's a little bit unusual for council to be the initiator of the delegation. Normally we work with the person requesting to see what date works for them and see, when they want to present. We often will also link items to something on the agenda. So for example, if we have, I don't know, a water report coming and somebody wants to present on conservation, we'll put them together. So there's a little bit of finesse that goes to assigning the delegations to the right agendas. So I can't really tell you exactly when.
Okay.
But we could essentially, if this passes, we would reach out to them and ask them what date works for them based on what we have available.
Through the mayor, just to clarify then.
Yes.
Thank you. So you do not need us to make a friendly amendment at the next available meeting or at the next, okay, perfect.
No, that would be our normal process.
Okay, thank you. So our understanding, Mr. Mayor, again, speaking to the motion, is that the task force, since we chose not to have a liaison for whatever reasons in the past, it has gone through a lot of changes now. There's a new board. And I think a lot of new information will be presented, is my hope, to this council when the delegation appears. So I'm quite interested in the work that they're doing and what they're pursuing to address this important issue in our community. fully understanding that a lot of the solution to the unhoused are provincial jurisdiction, laying outside our core services that we provide, just approving the tax increases. I fully understand that. But I think it's been said before, what we need is collaboration and interest to be involved in these organizations for the important work that they do. I look forward to hearing from the rest of the council what their interest is on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Bill, I believe you seconded, or did you? I think so.
Thank you. I will be supporting this. I look forward to hearing from that task force. And as Councillor Gore mentioned, I understand that there have been considerable changes. There's a new board. I have met a couple of members, but not beyond that. So I look forward to this.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look forward to hearing from them too. I've met some new members myself of the board, and their outlook and approach to our challenge with homelessness here in Parksville. So I support them coming when they can. Thank you.
Sure. Any other discussion? Councillor Wood, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be in support. I'm thoroughly impressed with the new chair, vice chair, and the table. So I look forward to the delegation. Thanks.
Councillor Grants, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this as well, although I do think it's probably not really necessary for us to have this motion, because my understanding is that they're planning on coming to us with a delegation already. They've already done a delegation to the regional district, which I think is great and a great place for them to start. And I was able to watch that presentation, obviously, or not obviously, I wasn't able to ask questions because I wasn't there officially, but I did get to hear from the new chair, which is very great to hear the progress they're making. And so I'll look forward to them coming and seeing how we can collaborate with them as another partner in the community.
Sure, thank you. And I support this as well. I've already met with the chair anyways, individually, and they had indicated, and we've already attended, as Councillor Grants mentioned, RDN session where they presented at the RDN, and I was anticipating them coming to City of Parksville as well. So if this moves this process along, then I'm all for it. So let's carry on with it. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Notice of motion. We have a notice of motion from Councillor Wood regarding the Union of BC Municipalities for Next Gen 9/11 grant application. Councillor Wood, could you introduce your motion, please?
Do you need me to read it all, Mayor? I can if you want.
It's kind of nice. Sure.
Sure. Recommendation that Council of the City of Parksville endorse the 2026 grant application to the Union of BC Municipalities Next Generation 911 funding stream for a regional addressing project between the City of Parksville, the District of Lantzville, and the Regional District of Nanaimo for $135,000. And number two, that Council authorize the Regional District of Nanaimo to apply for manage, administer, and be recipient for all grant application funds on behalf of the City of Parksville for the 2026 grant application to the Union of BC Municipalities for the Next Generation 911 funding stream. If I can get a seconder, then I'm going to let it speak for itself. Oh, sure. Okay, well, apply for, manage. That makes so much more sense.
Friendly amendment. Yeah.
Definitely a missing comma
I
there.
couldn't see. There it is. Okay.
There it is. Don't forget that comma. I won't make you read it over again.
That's good.
I think we all missed the comma and it's been reinstated. Thank you. Okay, so we've already have it moved and seconded. Hey. Okay, seconded by Councillor Gore. Any further discussion? All those in favor? I said any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Under notice of motion?
Yes,
Would you like to?
my apologies to
Yeah.
mayor and council. I did not bring this up at the beginning of agenda, but I also have a notice of motion.
Okay.
And
so-
I had thought earlier there was a possibility that it was going to be added in our written that I was intending to, but it didn't anyway.
So
Yeah,
why don't we put it in now under notices of motion for the next meeting?
well, that is a no, yeah, that's
Yes.
what it is. It's a notice of motion.
That's
It's not the
perfect.
motion. Absolutely.
Why don't we do
Okay,
that? Could you
thank
read
you.
it out to us, please?
I do, well, I will. No, my notice of motion, that staff be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw amendments to allow temporary use permits in all P2 zones. And that staff report back with draft bylaw language and implementation recommendations. And that this be given a high priority. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't need a mover or seconder for a notice of motion. Thank you for your notice. It will be noted for the agenda. Thank you. Are there any liaison reports? I have none on my list, but I'm willing to take any from the floor if anything came up in the last 20 minutes that I missed. None? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Beal.
I will just say that I did attend a very involved and lengthy library board meeting quite recently, although things will come forward to the regular board, but this was the audited financial and things are definitely on the right track, which is lovely, and also financial and an executive committee. So the library board staff there is working very hard to try to it is very, fiscally responsible and so on and so forth. But there's some, good news coming down the pipe, but I'll wait till after the regular meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other late notices or new business? None? Do I have a mover or second for the recommendation that pursuant to section 91E and F of the Community Charter, council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements and law enforcement? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Gore. All those in favor? Thank you. That